place. So this, your body already craved them. That was the actual thing that happened. And this was the mechanism that it used to do it. Now you can see that there was a symbiosis in that. The one piece of the plant made it so you needed the other piece of the plant and made it bioavailable. Now, when we're talking about pharmaceutical grade opium products, we're talking about they have taken and isolated this down to such a narrow window. And a lot of times they aren't even actually using the plant extract. They're making a synthesis. So that synthetic is not a plant derivative. And when you start looking at the molecules and the way they're structured, the way that they do that in order to put a patent on it so they can own that particular molecular structure, because they can't own a plant. They need to be able to own something. So when they own that structure, they need to make a slight variation in that structure in order to make that happen, to make that patentable. Well, now that that variation has happened, that particular component isn't really what it was. I mean, it's very similar. It's might smell similar, but just like with when we were talking about cassia and cinnamon, a lot of people will think that cassia is cinnamon, but cassia is much sweeter. It doesn't have the savory. The reactions in your body are different. They are not the same. They're just similar. So this is what you're getting whenever you're talking about a pharmaceutical made component. So it's really hard to say whether whether you're going to react to the same way to a symbiotically done plant component that isn't exactly the same and also has the symbiosis to it. No problem, brother.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you, Benjamin. If anybody has any questions, you're going to have to speak up, because there's too many people for me to know who to call on. But you can also, there's like a raise your hand feature there too, I think, in there, and I'll be looking at the chat. But if I was you guys, I'd be asking Benjamin everything you can right now. It's some good to have an alchemist on board. You know, that's a tough thing to find.
Hi, Jennifer. I know who you are. You bet.
Hi, Benjamin. Hi, everybody. In my Scottish accent.
You really can't beat the Scottish accent. It's just wonderful. I mean, I'm sure in Scotland you guys don't feel that way. It's just the way you talk. But from the rest of the world, we all enjoy it.
Well, the way you say Scotland, that's quite Scottish.
All right. Well, if anyone does have a question, feel free to jump in, or you can use the raise your hand feature. I will definitely be watching that. I don't want to put Richard on the spot, but just to kind of give an icebreaker so people will feel more open to talking. Richard, I'm going to put you on the spot and say, you had a question a couple days ago. You may not still have that question, so feel free to say, no, I don't want to talk about that anymore. But if you did, it would be great if you wanted to maybe ask that, and we could kick things off.
Okay, well, I do. That question I still have, and I'd love to talk to you. And then I also have things also for Benjamin. So.
Oh, well, great. No, hit Benjamin. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, Benjamin, do you know much about the workings of the blood? Because as I'm doing more researching into that, or actually, I guess my wife's doing most of it. She's just kind of giving me her results. But I'm finding that there's certain things about resonances of people depending on their blood. And like, obviously, a lot of O positive, specifically O negative, I'm finding there's a different type of energy that comes from those people than other people. And so I'm wondering, because as I'm learning about, the additional things added to, if O means original blood, whatever that is, the antigens or whatever you call it, that are attached to our cells, that some people have, either A blood or B blood and so forth. And I'm finding that a lot of the people that I see in this community, a lot of them are in the O negatives, and I'm wondering if there is something there, because I know that if they find out that you're an O negative person, like a mom, then they want to give you shots for when you have your baby, and they also test your baby. So it's almost like, to me, they're just looking for all the O blood and documenting it. And if that's the case, I'm thinking there's something electrical that happens, because I think obviously we all have the same RNA, DNA, whatever antigens on our blood, but some people have these additional things. So if they were removed, maybe we would all be the same that way. But you know, even in medicines, they don't know, like, oh, blood breaks down molecules and sugars and certain pills and medicines differently than the other bloods. And again, it's one of those things they don't know the answer to. So I guess my question to you is, what are your thoughts on that, and how it does affect our apertures or the things in the world that affect us differently? What do you think?
Well, if we make the assumption that all the cells were supposed to be the same, if we make that baseline that O was the original or whatever that you were saying, and then everybody else has made a variation from that position, then understand that, like, and I'm agreeing here that like myself, I'm A positive.
Me too.
So nice.
That's why my channel's positive. I'm an A positive person.
Nice. So as an A positive, we are more prone to being a vegetarian. We're not going to take in meat well. Well, if our body functions on that spot, and our body is not needing the things that some of these other people are needing. Now, I am an ethical vegetarian, but I also do understand that some people need to have extremely different needs, and those tend to match with the blood type, where the different blood types have extreme nutritional differences. So that's going to match up with what they're having to draw. Obviously, if I'm a potassium heavy person, and that's something that naturally carries with me, I'm not going to be drawn to potassium heavy foods. And so we can easily look at it like that your needs are going to be different because of that. And that's going to be because you are a different thing. Your vibration is definitely going to be different. So you're going to be, it's just going to draw you to different things. Your body's real good about that. It's going to tell you what it wants. It tells it from its standpoint. This is just like the ground, where, the different things are going to change the pH, change the ground. And so different plants, you're not going to want to put them in different spots. That's not going to work. If I want to take clover, my clover is a nitrogen fixer. So when I put that in the ground, that's taking nitrogen and fixing it, processing it, and making it bioavailable for all the other plants. Well, if I'm growing a plant that does not do well in a nitrogen-rich environment, I certainly don't want to put that clover down next to it. That's not going to pan out. Where if I put it next to corn, which is an extreme nitrogen eater, well, it's going to be lovely. They're just going to love each other. So this is what we're talking about here with the differences in the blood types. Is basically that's your biome. Your body's got a biome, and it's going to react differently to different things.
Okay. So
did I clear it up?
Well, no, it does. It is part of what I'm definitely talking about. I'm starting to see things people have. I don't know how to even describe it.
I definitely don't disagree that there's genetic markers that they're trying to isolate out certain people. And there's no doubt about that. But I know good?
Because that goes with my whole theory that there's I see, I don't want to describe them as powers, but like whatever it is that we're realizing within ourselves, and these different things that we can do that we never could, or at least we didn't know we could, they come out differently in different people. Like some people can actually read other people's thoughts. I've seen it. And some people are empathic and can take in other people's pain. And I've seen, like, my wife, again, O negative, she can make lights go off and computers and electronics just fizzle out. I mean, she can walk in a room and just kind of shut things down. So there's different things about us that are coming out, and I'm just putting my own theory that it might have something to do with the way that our blood is, because it's sending out our electrical charges differently. You know, maybe we're all supposed to have sent them this way, but now because of all these different things we have in us, it's going maybe that way or a little bit of both and stuff. And that's why we're coming with different abilities or whatever. What do you think that?
I absolutely agree. And I think that they're trying to map that out. But do I think anybody has a particular grip on it? Not in particular at this point. But I 100% think that they're trying to map that out. Wayne McCroy and Jason Lindgren had a real fascinating talk on this similar subject, where Wayne McCroy was postulating that the negative antigen made it so you dump toxins better than the positive. Some other, lots of theories, but do we know? No, I mean, I 100% agree with you that they're trying to map out what we could possibly have, because that's been the whole game, is keeping us from opening up our innate abilities. And so do I think that they, obviously the ones that they consider that could rival their power, those are going to be the ones that they want to cut out. And this also leads into, I honestly believe that magic's getting ready to reopen, that the world goes through cycles, and we've been in a cycle of dead magic, and we're getting ready to move into a cycle where our innate powers are more accessible to us. And they want to isolate that out and get the dangerous ones out that could rival them before it ever happens.
I want to add to that, Benjamin, that one of those powers that we see right now is what we believe used to be called telepathy is actually empathy. And that what you're seeing right now broadcasted across all of humanity is that people are opening up their ability to perceive someone's feelings by actually jacking into their adrenal system remotely. This happens through facial connection. You make a connection to the face, you're looking at someone, eye to eye, and you automatically start to feel what it is that they feel. This is something that we didn't always have the ability to do. In fact, we're now calling it empaths, where there's certain people that are like that. All you're looking at is just people that can dunk a basketball before anyone else can. They're not necessarily genetically special or different. They simply have just reached that puberty sooner. They have one more pubic hair than you do. It's that kind of thing. All of us are getting there. It's just a matter of not being afraid of our powers and not being afraid of our aperture.
Talking about that, I've done a bit of study in kinesiology, and what you can do with it is actually do a balance. A balance is basically resetting the body so it's not out of balance. Basically, it's all the electrics are starting to work again. And what you can do is actually set up someone's body to transfer that balancing onto someone else remotely. And I've done that to my wife, and it was for her cousin. And it was a different experience, but this can be done as well. So you can actually heal people or balance people's energetics remotely.
Love it. And the question about cooked food and uncooked food. So when a food is raw, understand that you're getting more of the electrical charge life out of the food. That assuming that you're eating it, uncooked, it's like fresh, that the life is still really in that plant. You're getting more of that life charge out of the plant. Now, when you cook it, assuming you don't overcook it and cook everything out of it, what you're doing is there's 3 levels of oil in all carbon-based life. And the first level of oil is is already open. It's the easiest to open, the most volatile. The last level of oil is closed. So what you have to do is oxycarbylate that last level, which means drop out the carbon molecules out of it in order to make it bioavailable. So when you cook foods, as long as you're not cooking all the oil out of it, if you're cooking it just enough to make that level of oil bioavailable, now what that third level of oil's bioavailability is doing is opening up the lowest level of salt and making that particular salt mineral available to you. So both are useful, both are handy. Just depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for the energy, or are you looking for the more heavy nutrients?
The other thing that happens when you cook food too much is you destroy the enzymes. So those enzymes is basically the electrical component, but it also produces the capacity for your body to break down or digest those. So enzymes are basically what you leave a banana on the bench and it starts breaking down itself. So yeah, that's the enzyme component in the banana that is breaking it down.
Well, that's awesome stuff. I don't know shit. That's why I'm just listening. Everything you guys are talking about, Benjamin, I'm still kind of floored that the way I cook food would give me more oil or more salt, depending on the temperature and the breakdown. And I've always known that you definitely break the enzymes down as you cook. Same with when you release the flavoring, but that's really profound. It makes sense because when you caramelize onions, they become sweet. Before you caramelize them, they're not sweet. They're crispy and they're tart. And that's the alchemy that's happening probably as above versus down below with what you're just describing. So it's reminding me that food is medicine, not food. And I've never really known that. I've always been brought up in a way where no, man, food is like a vehicle for flavor, experience, and harmony with other people.
Yeah, just basic gasoline, right?
Yeah, or even more so, yeah, as comfort, as an emotional crutch, as a bridge between reaching other people, as a seductive device. Like I see all that, but so few of us see it as medicine, as it truly is. So it's
You bet. And like Lucas was saying, the first thing that happens is, and this is part of why I was saying the difference between cooked and non-cooked, is the enzymes die. You're pasteurizing it. You're taking all the life out of it. That's the first thing that's going to happen. And then the next thing that's going to happen is like when people, I don't know where this big thing where you boiled everything. And people get the impression that when you boil it, you've taken all the nutrition out, but really you haven't. What you've done is you've made a tea. The tea is the oil stripped out. So now if you don't take in that oil along with because the nutrient's coming from the salt, but the salt's only bioavailable through the oil. So when you boil out the water and make a tea and then dispose of that, you're eating non-bioavailable salt. So now you've killed the enzymes, as Lucas has said. You've taken the life out of the plant. You've split the salt in the oil, and then you've removed the piece that makes the other piece bioavailable. So all you're doing is eating a bunch of carbon at that point.
And the other thing is, the body has to then produce the enzymes to actually digest it. So it's creating more work for the body.
So does that mean you're saying, Benjamin, that you don't recommend cooking any food? Or because like if I take, say, asparagus, I can eat it raw, or I can cook it in some butter, olive oil, and eat it that way. Does that just making it fun to eat, but I've ruined the fuel or whatever it is that I was supposed to get from that?
No, because when you cook it, if you cook it, and when I say cook it, there's you want to cook it at 180 degrees, which is going to oxycarbonate it, but you want to cook it a very short time because you don't want to create a separation of the oil and the salt. You don't want to pull them out. Those two components need to work together, but the oil has got to be oxycarbonated in order for it to make that final mineral salt bioavailable. So that heat's needed. You eating it raw is not going to make it. When you eat a plant raw, all the minerals in it are not available to you. It's not. But as Lucas was explaining, there's enzymes, there's electrical life that you are taking in, that you're incorporating into your system. So that is giving you the energy, the life energy, but you've also run off of salt nutrients. And only through the cooking and making bioavailable do you get some of those nutrients. But it cannot be overcooked, and you also do not want to separate the oil and the salt, because if you do that, the salt is not bioavailable to you. If it's not bioavailable, it's basically as stupid as these people that run down to the health store and spend $1,000 in vitamins that they chuck down their gullet and then piss out. And their body didn't incorporate a bit of it.
Okay.
You've done the same thing to food.
Thank you.
I'm gonna call on Rachel. Rachel, it looks like you got your hand up. If
yeah, he just he answered my question pretty much. But so Benjamin, do you think like a dry saute process would work better than the actual physical cooking process? Like would I cook vegetables in oil, or just in a dry pan?
Yeah, in the oil or in the dry pan, just so long as you are not separating the components. Where the problem comes in is when they either overcook through really hot heat or an extended duration, where you're starting to make the oils burn off and leave. And then when the other problem comes in is when you separate the oil. So like if you boil vegetables, you've made a tea, the tea is sucked the oil away from the plant. And then the first thing you do is you throw that the juice away and you just start eating the raw plant material. Well, the oil, which was the component that made the nutrients in that, it was in that water that you threw away. So as long as you aren't doing that, like where you're talking about cooking in an oil, like a nice olive oil, where the oil is now becoming the olive oil is becoming a carrier for the other oil, and they're just combining, they're not leaving. So you're keeping that, and now you've got both components, so it's going to be bioavailable to you. So just don't cook it off too long, and do not separate out the oil from the plant material and eject it.
Point of clarification, Benjamin, I would like to know that are you saying that you can take a food and boil only the oil away, and then you will only have the salt there remaining, but then in addition to that, you could also cook the salt away too, and then you would be left with nothing at all? Can you clarify that?
Well, so after you've thrown the oil away, and this is basic alchemy, guys. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to heat it. You're going to boil it. You're going to heat it in a pot. Like you can watch my videos. I take plant material and I heat it in a pot to about 180 to 200 degrees, and I boil it. So the water strips the oil out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is separate the things, because I'm going to take and put that oil back together at the end of it. But I separate the things. So now I've got a pile of plant material, and I've got a wine or a tea that has all the oil in it. Now from the plant material side, now I'm going to take and I'm going to burn that down. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to turn black, like you just Cajun cooked your food. So you're going to, so that is the carbon activating. That's what we're trying to get out of the plant material, because the carbon is everything on this plane. That is not the plant material in and of the plant in and of itself. Did Lucas say he's leaving? Thank you so much, Lucas. I really appreciate it, brother. You are brilliant.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Lucas, great guy. I really encourage you to subscribe to his channel and check him out for sure. LC King, you can just look that up, LCKING on YouTube. And if you give him subscribe, I think that'd be a really nice gesture. I can encourage you all to do that. Thank you, Lucas, if you're still there.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me so much. Yeah, sorry I didn't talk too much. Yeah, but it's pretty early in the morning here, so yeah.
Well, I also the topic was very nuanced, I must admit, and I just thank you for the fellowship anyway. Just listening to it, and you know, I'd love to have you on again where we can focus more on the plasma of flat Earth, because that's a huge, awesome topic. I'd love to get into.
Well, and
Yeah.
if you understand it, Lucas's work is so key, and today we tried to tie so many things together, but having a strong understanding of what Lucas is saying and his work is going to give you such a strong understanding of how all these things work to help you draw these components together. And he's doing the experiments and doing it at a level that you can understand and see. So I can't stress that enough. It's super important.
Where do you live, Lucas?
In Australia.
That's awesome. It's a pleasure meeting you today. I love making new connections, and I'll definitely check out your channel. I'm fascinated by a lot of this stuff and what you just talked about. So looking forward to that.
Thanks. All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Love you, brother. Okay, so now that we've got the oil inside of the tea or the wine or whatever you want to call it, what we've got left is a plant material. Now we're burning off the carbon. The carbon is native to everything on this plane. That is not the plant itself. We can take that carbon away, and the essential oil is still lavender essential oil. The salts are salt from lavender, but the carbon's carbon. That's not specific to the lavender plant in any way, shape, or form. Once released, it's carbon that can be used in any other carbon-based life form. The same thing with the water, the same thing with the cellular material. So we're going to burn this down until it's a fine grayish white ash. Now then we're going to mix it with distilled water, and we're going to strain it out. Now, the reason we're doing it with distilled water is because distilled water does not have any mineral salts of its own in it. Because what we're doing right now is removing the mineral salts from the carbon. So the mineral salts will reside in that water. After you strain it out, the filter will catch the ash because that's a hard material. And the salt has now been opened up and turned liquid with the water. That'll pass through. It'll catch that actual material of the cellular material. The other thing that will be in there is a little bit of metal particulates. Gnostically, they call that the archons. That's an entirely different subject that we could do an entire show on, and how the planets affect you, or luminaries, or whatever you want to call it. There's a magnetic energy that passes between those lights and through the metals in your body that's connecting you. But that's left in there also. So the only thing left in that water is the pure mineral salts. You evaporate off the water, you'll have a nice little pile of salt, you scrape that up, you throw that back in with the oil. That is the entire purity of the plant.
I have a question for you, Benjamin. It actually comes from probably one of your biggest fans. It's my wife. She's the one that got me introduced to both you and James. And by the way, I am going to take the clip where you said you agreed with me 100%, and I'm going to play that for her for sure on a loop. But she wanted to know, she wanted to know about your still. Did you make it? Did you buy it? How do we do that process? Because honestly, that's about the only thing we don't have yet that we've seen you working on. So help me out with that idea.
Nice. I've got a couple stills. So if you want to make a homemade still, there's really not too much to it. So you understand that with a still, all a still is doing is a enclosed space. So in my still, we call that the alembic. That's where your prima materia goes in. So your tea or your wine. And so what we're doing at that point is heating up and evaporating things off. So the only thing you need then is understand that you're going to evaporate off these oils, these liquids, and turn them into a gas. And then you need to have it sealed up except for one exit point. And that one exit point is going to force that gas through that exit. And then you're going to put it through a copper coil or a glass coil. Copper coil is real cheap. You can go down to the hardware store. You get yourself an old, nice sealed up teapot, and you just, on the spout end of it, where the steam starts coming out, you're going to attach a copper coil to that, and then you're going to loop that copper coil. And if you can, put that in a submersion of water, because what that copper coil is doing is condensing the gas back down into liquid. Okay, so then it turns that back into the liquid, which is going to be your oil, and then out the end of that copper tube is going to drip your oil. Now, understand that when you're doing that, when I go and make this mixture, the most volatile thing in that mixture is going to be first the methyl alcohol, and that's the stuff that made the old moonshiners go blind. That's why they knocked the head off their old shine. So the very most unstable component is your methyl alcohol. And that's just going to be a little bit, and that's going to be the first thing. So when you're doing this, you want to take your flame or your, if you're doing electrical, but you want to turn your temperature up extremely slow. Because understand that 180 to 200 degrees is the most you're going to ever want to get up to. So you're going to want to start out real slow so you can get just the methyl alcohol to evaporate off. And then you're going to chuck that crap because that's garbage. And then the next thing you're going to do is crank the heat up a little bit, because ethyl alcohol is more stable and will not evaporate off as quick as the methyl. So you turn it up a little bit, and then you get the ethyl alcohol to evaporate off. And that's where you get your moonshine or your white lightning. Okay. Now, what's going to be left in there is going to be your oils. So you're going to turn it up a little bit more, and now you're going to get your terpene level of oil to evaporate off. And each time you do this, obviously you're going to want to change out your container at the bottom, because you're going to want to keep these components separated. Well, then after the terpene level, then you crank up your heat, and you're going to get the next level oil. And then you crank it up just a very little bit, and you'll get your final level of oil. And now you've got the entirety of the plant. So really, this can all be done off of your stove with just a teapot and copper coil.
And you said immersing in water. What area were you talking about immersing?
The coil, if you would ideally prefer the coil, just the copper coil itself, to be immersed in a cold water to help the transition from gas back to liquid. Okay. So while it's going through that, because then also as it cools, it's going to fall. As a gas, it's going to want to stay up top and stay bound up. So if you don't give that gas, this is the only danger that you really run into with distilling is if you aren't cooling that gas a little bit and letting that gas flow back out, you'll end up building up pressure in a gas pocket, because it's not turning into liquid and flowing away. And that's where you hear about the old explosions with distillers. That's because they did not cool their gas and pull it away. And so they ended up with a buildup of gas pressure.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anybody else, or James?
So Ben, what do you think about using distilled water? Do you think that's okay?
Distilled water for drinking, or for what? For drinking, if you are experiencing too heavy of a mineral salt load, then I would say drink distilled water, but in no other terms, just drink distilled water. So like when we were doing this experiment, what we were just talking about, where I used distilled water to grab onto those salts, okay? So this is just like making Kool-Aid when you were a kid. The water will only hold so much Kool-Aid powder, okay? So when you start out with distilled water, that has nothing in it. Now, as you start adding salts into it, now the water becomes more balanced electrically, and it quits grabbing onto those salts and letting them have it in there. And that's where you get precipitate, where the leftover Kool-Aid powder that won't mix into the water falls down to the bottom. That's your precipitate. So when it's a distilled water, that is an extreme negative. That extreme negative needs to grab onto salts in order to balance itself. So when you drink distilled water, water is a carrier for charge, okay? Like when we were describing in the battery, the distilled water is what is carrying the electrolytes, and the electrolytes is what's carrying the charge. Now, the distilled water is making the electrolytes bioavailable, but the distilled water isn't doing the work, okay? So when you drink distilled water, that negative is going to grab onto the positive minerals of your body and yank them out. So you're basically stripping your body of minerals and then pissing them out when you drink distilled water. So in an instance where you have too much mineral, like in a plant, when you get too many electrolytes into the plant, it gets too high of an electroconductivity, and then the plant will actually go into a reverse and dump its water out and end up killing itself through lack of water, because then the electroconductivity got too high and it dumps. It's a very interesting thing, but the human body doesn't really work any differently. So only time I would ever recommend drinking distilled water is if you are aware that you have an overabundance of mineral salts that you are trying to pee out.
Would that include heavy metals?
Heavy metals are not good. They do not chelate into water. They won't. So like when you're doing the alchemy, the metals were actually left behind in the ash. So the water just mixed with the salt, but it would not mix with the metals. Metals are not, they won't mix with water. So what you got to do with your heavy metals is you need to chelate them and make it so that way you can flush them back out of your system. One of the big things that you're going to use to chelate any type of heavy metal is going to be silica. So any silica heavy compound is going to chelate metal really well for you. We're talking diatomaceous earth.
Yeah.
Yes, diatomaceous clay. I see. So diatomaceous earth is a good one. My personal favorite is horsetail. Horsetail is freshwater asparagus is what they like to call it. And you got the most bioavailable heavy silica of any plant. I'm getting ready to make a tincture that is a cell salt based tincture that contains all those. I've got about 5 pounds of horsetail sitting at home, and I'm also going to make a tincture just of horsetail for heavy metal treatments. But yeah, that's going to be your silica is what breaks that down. And then now once it's broke down, then you can flush it out of your body.
I notice in the diatomaceous earth that I've got, it has aluminium as an ingredient, but I'm assuming that because I'm drinking that, that's just going through the donut shape. It's just coming right out. It's not going into my muscles or anything. So, yeah.
Yep, exactly. It's not bypassing the blood-brain barrier. It's not, it's not broken down. Like even when we look at copper, like when you wear a copper ring and that ring starts turning your finger green, your body was not able to take in the copper in the ring form as the nice, pretty brownish metal. When it turned green and oxidized and started breaking down, that's where that starts actually soaking into your skin and your body starts taking it in. So just like you said there with the aluminum or aluminium, I love the way people across the pond say that. Cracks me up. I was just watching the Ford versus Ferrari, and it had Christian Bale, and he's aluminium. Like, you know, yeah, it's, but
I
that
think
isn't.
aluminum's actually the oldest way to say it, apparently.
Ah, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that has not been broken down. Any pieces of it that you do break down, all these metals, when we say toxic, that's because they've been overloaded into your body and introduced into your system in a way that your body is not ever going to use it, which is different than eating. These things are all natural. They're in plants. They're in all carbon-based life forms, but they're in there in a form that your body understands, and that's sending it through your digestive system makes it that way. Sticking you with a needle, that is not how it's meant to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I just want to add that in the adjuvant form, aluminum is it's not bound to anything. It's triple positive, ions, I guess is what you call it. If you're swallowing aluminum in the atmosphere is bound to something. It has to be. It's going to seek something to bind to. In fact, the process of creating aluminum, of unbinding it from shale, creates fluoride. It's basically, it's like really, really dangerous stuff. But seriously, the safest thing you could do with aluminum is swallow it versus inject it versus inhale it versus whatever. It's funny because people think that the worst thing you could possibly do is inject something into your veins, but actually injecting something into your muscle is much more dangerous, especially when it comes to something like aluminum, because if it was to hit your veins, it would quickly reach your kidneys and would find its way out. But when it's stuck in the muscle like that, none of us know what happens, right? Only like 10% of the aluminum is ever even found as it leaves the body. So I want to shut up because I'd rather Ben keep talking, but I wanted to clarify.
That's quite interesting you saying that, because Gates thinks that you inject vaccinations into your veins. He actually just said that recently. So I don't know if he's trying to distract and make out that, so that people, if they look into it, they'll see, oh, the vein, or well, that's...
Have they never gotten one? Like when I was in the Army, they straight up we had to walk down a row, and there was a jackass standing on each side, and a whole row of these dudes, each of them holding an air gun, and they just stick that right up to your shoulder, and you just did it.
I got it too. Yeah, I got the same treatment.
I don't think Gates has had injections, though, do you really? You'd be the last one to have.
No.
Yeah, well, Gates definitely did say inject it into their vein, which does show how little he understands that, because that's kind of a 101 thing in vaccines. I'm not saying everyone should know that. It's just, but it shows you, where his level of understanding how this work is at. I get really disgusted when I hear doctors who say this a lot. They will tell you, well, it's the same as you can eat aluminum, so it should be fine to inject it. And it's just, you could not be more wrong. It's so incorrect to say that. I'm glad that you say the torus. The body is a torus. And until we understand that, we're going to be falling for some really, really dumb people that have white lab coats on.
Well, like you said, aluminum is an adjuvant. So they already know that your body's not cool with what they're doing. So if people don't understand the way an adjuvant works, an adjuvant is something that's getting your body to react. That is supposed to piss your body off. It is the heckler, the guy egging the fight. So when they inject you with a vaccine, they inject you with, supposedly, this isn't me saying I believe all of this. I'm saying that the way that they present this is they've injected you with a solution that's got a dead cell of a virus in it. Now, your body is going to recognize that this cell is dead and not live. So your body's like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to show up to fight this dead dude. You know, the fight's already been fought. So the aluminum is supposed to be in there. What that's supposed to be is an adjuvant. Now, what an adjuvant is basically the egger on. He's like, yeah, I know that thing's about half dead, but he called your mom a whore. You know, so your body's like, what? What? And now your body's ready to fight. That's what that's supposed to be doing. So in no way is that making your body happy. That is something that's just totally kicking your system of defense into gear. It's not a good thing.
No.
Well, I don't think that we're going to find anyone in this room who probably don't think I'll find anyone in this room who believes in vaccines.
Right, which again, that was the way they say it works. So and I was only explaining that specifically so you understand that even in their story,
Sure.
An adjuvant's not your friend.
Yeah.
That's something meant to irritate your body, to make your body angry and get it to react. They're saying that dead cell was not enough to get your body to fight. Your body was like, he's here, but he's about dead anyways. I'm just going to ignore it. And they had to put in something to get your body to start doing the things that it did. So that aluminum was the irritant. That was the trigger.
Yeah, it not only was it is the trigger. It's still inside you for the rest of your life probably. And it's causing a very different electrical response, isn't it? Your body is having aluminum's going to respond to the electric aspect of the signals that it's being sent. And that's going to stay with you forever. And that's why it's called an adjuvant. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. I try and
Holy
say,
shit, this just struck me too, James.
What's that?
Wow. So as an electrician, you like any fine electronic equipment that's gonna have you can't have it can't be sloppy. Like you need some real fine electricity. It's got to be clean.
Yeah.
You do not get to use any aluminum in that. Aluminum's used in all kinds of electrical. You know, if you're just trying to run a household light or whatever, aluminum used to be the preferred white, the preferred metal. And still in your high power wires going to and from your house, almost everybody's house, that's aluminum. Now, but the aluminum, the power that flows through it is dirty and sloppy. It's bad. Mm-hmm. The aluminum oxidizes real bad from it, swells, you lose all kinds of heat. It doesn't transfer through it well at all. Now, on the flip side, what we're talking about with the anointed one is gold. How does gold conduct? Gold conducts like a mad beast. That is so clean. It's close to superconductor level, like just naturally. And they're pushing our bodies. All of us who aren't anointed ones are getting the aluminum compared to the anointed one getting the gold. They're just like straight up filling our bodies with this electrical conductor that is horrifying electrically. Like I said, no fine electrical equipment in the world, no computers. They won't put no aluminum pieces in that. It's gold, baby.
Yeah, or silver. Yep. It's got to be one of those. And keep in mind that the reason why aluminum doesn't rust, there's a reason why aluminum doesn't rust. And there's a reason why it corrodes the way it does. And it's because the aluminum has to bind with something. And when you turn it into an adjuvant salt, when you decide I'm going to turn this into a salt so we can use it to inject it into your arm, what do you think happens to that salt once it enters your intermuscular tissue? That salt, I believe, becomes unbound. And once it's unbound, you now have free range roaming aluminum that has a triple charge, positive charge, and it's looking for somewhere to go. It's going to change the electrical signature throughout your entire life in a way which is always an over warning. In other words, the second your body responds to maybe an emergency, if you believe in the immune system theory, your system's already been screaming at 30% for the last 4 years because it has this conductor that's been lodged in it. It's the same, guys, if you ever had a splinter in your finger, it's the splinter has to come out. If you ever get shrapnel in your arm with a bullet, the bullet has to come out. All right. If you swallow a bullet, you're fine. You're going to poop it out. You'll be okay. But you can't poop it out if you put it in your arm. And that's what we're happening with unbound aluminum, electrically conductive, disruptive aluminum. And you would think that, well, if I was to take a bunch of paper clips and throw them inside my power circuit breaker, I might expect that some things might short and some systems might connect which weren't connected before. And you would end up with basically the equivalent of autoimmune disease, right? You'd end up with some sort of autoimmune disease. And my friends, we have over 102, maybe 110. I just composed a list. You can find it. You just look it up. But there's over 110 new autoimmune diseases that have been here for the last 100 years. And we've been vaccinating for the last 100 years. Yes, we've done other things. We've put up electrical lines. But guys, if you've got an aluminum conductor inside you and you're surrounded by EMF radiation, doesn't that mean that the EMF radiation is going to be able to respond to that aluminum even more and cause it no different than, there's a reason why you cannot get into an MRI machine with a piece of steel. You can't do it. You can't go in there with a watch. You can't go in there with earrings. My mom has titanium in her body. And she's like, I don't know if I can get a sauna or not. I'm like looking around. I don't know if you can have a sauna. I have no idea. How does that work? You know? So we know we're supposed to be concerned about this, just not when it's an adjuvant, not when it's called aluminum, and not when it's in a vaccine. It's literally the antithesis of logic there. It makes no sense at all.
And some things, some of these salts, some of these things just absolutely never leave your body. You can easily look at something like acid, where you get acid flashbacks, because the acid, if you take acid, LSD acid, that will forever reside in your cerebrospinal fluid. And then, just like James was talking about, where these aluminums, all of a sudden something happens, well, you have an acid flashback. Same thing. All of a sudden you twisted this wrong, and that salt got popped in that inside of your cerebral spinal fluid, and your body said, remember that time you took acid? Oh, wow. And you feel it and you experience it, and it's all there again. And so when you're doing things like this to yourself and your body isn't able to which acid, I'm not pro acid. I've never taken acid in my life. It's that was made by scientists, meant to do what it's doing. It's horrible stuff meant for MK Ultra. When these things are entered into your body and your body hangs on to them, you don't even know how long that's going to, like I said, acid stays in your spinal fluid forever. For the rest of your life, you don't even know. You bend over to pick up a soda can, your back pops, and all of a sudden you're back in the 70s. Like, aluminum's no different.
Yep, tripping balls. There's so much to posture. There's so much to the spine, and there's so much to how you hold yourself, your presence, because you are a meat antenna, and your bones are the antenna. The salt inside those bones, I don't know how it works. That's why I hang out with Benjamin. But the salt, your adrenals themselves, the reason why your adrenals are separated so far in your body is because it needs the distance. You can't crumble up an antenna into a ball and expect it to work. You want to stretch it out. You want to have it erect. And when you have posture, when you lack shame, you stand taller. You have a different presence to you. Others see that posture. They feel that. They resonate.
You align your spine. Your spine goes into its natural alignment. You don't hunch in on yourself and hunch yourself down like the hunchback of Notre Dame, all ashamed.
Yep.
You shoulders square up, spine lines up, different flow.
Yep. The most basic alchemy was described by Aleister Crowley, of all people, and he described it as there's a question mark and there's an exclamation point. And those who have their spine curled over in a question mark are not an exclamation point. And those who raise to themselves their potential, this is technically the Lucifer, is the exclamation point. And this is the Satan. This is the fallen. There's, like I said, I get really mad at hope fags that always want to preach positivity. I get mad at them because they're throwing paper clips. They're connecting all the circuits wrong. And it's just really fucking shit up, man. It's really, really bad. You got to have that heathen root. You got to hang out with someone who's the heathenest guy you can think of. And you have someone right here in the room. And we need, the entire country needs that. That's why I have Benjamin on so much. It's that's what the zeitgeist needs, you know. It needs to look at that and go, there's nothing to be ashamed about here. In fact, there's some really cool stuff here. In fact, guy seems to know more than my doctor. And you're just, here we are, you know. So
there's I can't think of who the philosopher was, but we've turned this into such a weird world where anybody that's intelligent, they want you to be this dude, and you should walk around all meek and nerdy, and then anybody that's this, you know, that dude should be dumb as a box of rocks. And there's actually a quote that says when society does that, you're gonna have your thinkers be cowards and your fighters be idiots. And this does not pan out. Just because you're an intelligent person and you study and you care about the world, that does not mean that you need to be meek and drawn in and this nerdy little scientist. I tell you what, like just this morning, I go out and I have a bull, and that bull, he don't piss with me. He looks at me, he's like, ugh, ugh. But he don't piss with me. None of the animals do, because I'm a beast. I go out and I'll take care of anything. I'm not scared of nothing. I'm a man. But that doesn't mean I need to be stupid. I'm not going to go out and pick a fight with that bull for no apparent reason. I'm not going to go doing stupid things. I'm not a child. Yeah, you definitely, there's nothing wrong with being proud. This hunched up, somebody in the chat said yoga is exact example, perfect example, where you're doing these movements to try and align your body and get all that flow happening. And then after you do it, your body is going to function best. You know, just like a garden hose. If I'm out spraying my garden hose and somebody put a kink in it, it's not doing anything. You're going to take away all its power. It's not going to work well. It's only when you've straightened it out, got everything into its nice alignment, into its nice flow, and nothing feels comfortable. Like, even, especially those people that carry themselves hunched up, when you just pull your shoulders back and straighten, you immediately feel more powerful. You're like, Why do you not feel, why do you have a problem with that being your natural state? Why does your natural state need to be mousy and sucked in and fearful? Like, I tell you what, in every animal on the farm, that dude gets picked on. That dude gets picked on. No matter what animal species we're talking about. The mousy little dude like that, he gets picked on. I don't care if the chicken is 2 pounds and the dude doing the picking is 20. If that little 2-pound chicken sticks his head back, it's like, piss on you, and jumps at the other chicken, just sticks his chest out, they will leave that one alone. Like, nah, that little dude, you don't want to piss with them. He will get angry about it. You don't like it. And it doesn't matter if the chicken they're picking on is the biggest chicken in the yard. If he's a little sucked in on himself, that little 2-pound dude's now picking on him. It's entirely about you. And like I said, if just drawing your chest back and straightening your back up and drawing your shoulders, you immediately feel more powerful. Revel in that. That is your natural state. That is what you were here to meant to be, not meant to be cowed down.
Here.
Yeah.
I think
that was great. That was really great.
I think the more you think about your body as that antenna, as that meat antenna, the more you can really understand literally just how easy this is to run your electrical field. You are that circuit board, and you can evaluate. It's all belief. Forget the word knowing. All right, knowing is what you tell yourself to feel better. It's all belief. And you have 100 amps in your panel. Open up your panel and see, where is all my belief going? What circuits have I assigned to each of these aspects of my life? Is this right? Do I really need 60 amps in this room? Should I even have this room? Whatever it is, you can look at all that stuff and reevaluate. And I think as long as you feel like obligated to do something, that's a form of shame. If you're doing something because you feel obligated, it's a form of shame. You need to evaluate that, because you have to honor the agreements that you've made. So I'm not saying that that's even bad shame, but use your emotional state as an electrical like an electrical tester, where you're analyzing the voltage that's coming in. Use your emotions as a volt tester. Because you're going to find that if you're really honest and giving yourself compassion about your emotions, most of us are taught to ignore the bad emotions and be like, yeah, that's what life is. But if you take those bad emotions and go, why do I feel that way? You're going to find it's connected to a circuit that doesn't serve you anymore, that you don't need. And if you give yourself enough compassion, you will find that circuit, you will track it down, and you will just pull it out. And you'll say, this is not for me anymore. And when you do that, B7, cervix C2 will straighten just a little bit. It'll just go, just a little tweak, the tiniest tweak. And it may not make sense to you at the time. But one day, when I was cleaner, when my spine was cleaner, I was sitting down with friends, and I was in a lotus position. I'm not a meditator. I'm not a yoga guy. I was playing with my spine. And I was really proud. I was really comfortable with myself. I really loved the people we were hanging out with. I was actually above the floor of this really amazing lady that just impressed me with her own magic. So it was like really charged, the whole thing. My point is, as I was in this position, just something changed. The entire room changed. And I was no longer looking at matter. I was no longer looking at material. I was looking at the colors of my body vibrating from my spine, and it was pretty amazing. And I saw the red, I saw the orange, I saw this buildup, I saw this rising tunnel buildup, and it got to my throat, and I got scared. I remember feeling scared, and I remember when it felt scared, it was like the whole thing went down again, and I was just like, oh fuck. And I didn't even know how disappointed I was going to be by being scared. And I'm not trying to say that I don't have these, this is not me. I don't have a lot of things like this, but I had that. And I'm telling you guys, there's something about very strong intuition that the reason why I entered that state is not because of my blood type or my history or because someone anointed me or anything else. I think it was because my spine, just by sheer fucking luck, just for a split second, just everything just lined up just right. Like all my knuckles spread out just this way and this way, in just the right way, and I got a clear signal. And just for a moment, I was like reading the fucking mothership, you know? And she was just like, what's up, dude? And I saw it. And I've never had that experience again. But whenever I talk to other people, whenever I research this stuff, it feels like this is what it is. And look at the Gospel of Thomas. Look at the living cross analogy. Look at Odin. Maybe Benjamin will tell us about Odin, because there's there's something to this. There's something to this electrical antenna idea. And if you can get in tune and set all 33 keys to be exactly right, something opens, right? Something different comes through your aperture.
That's the third position of the Vitruvian man that they don't show you. Yeah, the Vitruvian man should have another position, and you can see that. So there's a reason that whenever they portray a wizard, his hands are straight up and their head's supposed to be knocked back like this. And so you're putting every single thing into alignment when you're doing that. When you look at your three minds are three fields, okay? So your three fields are going to be your genitals, which you can look at the shape of an ovary or a testy, whichever. They're same approximate shape, you know, the same shape as your lungs. So your lungs is your second field, which is the same shape as the two halves of your brain approximately. So you're putting your, right. And then in between the fields is your pituitary, or your pineal gland, your heart, and your penis or your vagina. So this is your three fields, and then the center of the field. Now, when you put your hands up in the tree of life, you're accessing the very top of the tree. You're accessing the top of your field of your personal aligned field. You're not accessing this way. You're accessing as high up. So you're going for your Godhead. And you're also tilting your head back, because as you do that, now your brain, the field is in alignment with your lung field, in alignment with your genital field. So all three fields are in alignment, and you're reaching for that power. You're opening up all of your own personal power and aligning yourself perfectly.
Wow. Fucking wow, man. I'm striking, first of all, Orion's belt. It's like you're putting that pattern in place. Second of all, you've got polarity in your brain, two halves. You've got polarity with your heart and your lungs, or both your lungs, depends on how you look at it. And then your gonads too, which is freaking amazing. And then the pituitary pineal, there's a polarity there. It's milk, honey. I really like hanging out with you, dude. That's really amazing.
James?
Yes.
So two things came up just now. That last thing I want to ask Benjamin, but something that you talked about, and I've actually mentioned to you, I think before, is my wife has done that same thing that you described, where she set herself in a perfect alignment one evening. And again, just like you described, it was our anniversary, we were out to dinner, and so many wonderful things had happened, and she was in just this state of euphoria. We hadn't had anything to drink yet, and she did that thing, I guess, and put herself in a perfect alignment and saw all kinds, like the whole world, like you described, but it was a little different for her. It looked almost more matrixy, and everything changed in front of her eyes while I was sitting there. I didn't know what was happening. And she could see some people still in the room, and other people just turned into the, whatever it is, programming, whatever that, you know, the green and numbers and stuff is what it kind of looked like, she said. And we had to leave because it was overwhelming, and I had to help her out of the restaurant, and then we went home. And I think the same thing, that like kind of nervousness and scaredness, because or whatever you want to call it, because it went on and off, she said, for about a few more hours that night, and then she hasn't done it since. So there definitely is something to what you're describing. And I think, just like you say, the aperture, the resonance, whatever, was at such a perfect moment that you were able to adjust everything exactly as they're supposed to be. So there definitely is something there.
Yeah.
And then what Benjamin was talking about, fascinating. I love listening to this, man. And what about the question, because I noticed when I was reading the Bible and they kept talking about they put their face to the floor, and at first I was like, wow, why would you ever get that, you know, you just have to put your head on the floor. And now, of course, I totally get it. So, but do you also feel that's also part of that whole electrical connection, because now you're connecting to the earth more, because instead of putting your head to the sky, you're putting it down to the ground?
So this is going to bring us into, I think that's somewhat of twisting, which is something that they very much like to do, is take something and then slightly twist it so it loses its power.
Okay.
Now, if we look at, now in the resurrection ritual, the key that always is in there is the hanged man. And the same thing also appears in any type of trope. When you look at the hanged man, because of our program, the first thing we automatically think is just the dude hanging by his neck, on a tree. But if you look at the hanged man and you look at any of those examples, you're going to notice that, okay, so when I was just describing with me or the Godhead, if I hang myself upside down, I am in that position again, only reversed. So as a plant, when I'm doing alchemy to a plant, the first thing that I want to do is open up the Godhead, or the highest level of oil. I need to oxycarbonate. Let's take this to cannabis, because that's, everybody understands the oil levels in cannabis. I want to make the THC bioavailable. So I need to oxycarbonate the THC. That action is moving up. I heated it up and oxycarbonated it. Now, the very next thing that I want to do is, this is Odin throwing his eye down the well. Once he's activated that all-seeing eye or Godhead, he throws it down the well so it can activate the lowest salt. So now that I've activated the highest, I need to flip shit around and activate the lowest, which is where my wisdom and my power lie. So my opinion is that's an inversion of that, only they're taking away the power of it, like they like to do in so many instances, where you're not actually doing it, but you're kind of doing it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And as far as that pose, my entire life, knowing my wife, she's always done that constantly, and maybe that's why she was more easier to shoot the hoop in the basket before I am. But because like the products she makes, I even have a photo I used of her in that pose. So it's kind of the synchronicities that you're talking about. It's pretty fascinating. So
it's fantastic. Well, I got a message from my farmhand guys. He said my power went out and I got the gas cans in back. We're changing out those batteries today, so we're running off a generator. We can definitely do this again next Saturday and do the questions. I'm sorry that I would stay for hours and do this, guys.
Oh man, nothing to be sorry about. Thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much, Benjamin. I encourage everyone to just unmute real quick and just say thanks, man. I think it'd be cool if everyone did it at once.
Oh, you bet.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Thank
you, Benjamin.
Thanks, guys.
Come again.
I love that.
I love you guys.
I love that sound. That's awesome. I love it.
That's great.
You guys don't know how much this community is just that people actually receive and are actually thinking, and to come out and find you guys, love it.
Hey, Benjamin, I'm sure my wife has 1,000 more questions about the alchemy and the stills and stuff that I want to bore everyone here, but James has my information. If you wouldn't mind, James, sharing it with him, so that way maybe she could contact him about some.
Absolutely, please do. I'm always very if you got questions, even if I miss it for a day, I always try to answer any questions anybody's got.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you bet.
He's got.
So you're going to use natural potassium in those batteries you're going to change, or?
No, store-bought electrolytes.
Okay.
Store-bought electrolytes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Ended up costing about $500. My battery bank is 24 L16 batteries, because I got a 48-volt system, and then I got 3 banks because you parallel 8. My batteries are 6 volt, so I parallel 8 6-volt batteries and then into 3 banks of 8 to up the amperage. So that's about an $8,000 bank of batteries. Where if I do this, I'm going to spend about $20 on distilled water and about 500 on battery acid electrolyte, and that should basically renew the system.
Do you have a video on your channel on your battery system or anything?
I will by tomorrow, brother.
Sweet.
So
Thank you.
Gonna go home and get that done.
And then another one about how to grow my beard longer.
Yeah, you bet. Love you guys.
Yeah, have a great day, Benjamin. I encourage everyone to check out Benjamin's YouTube channel and his website. You can actually order some good medicine from him if he has it in stock. That is Odin's Alchemy?
Nope, heathenwizards.com.
That's right. It's your email. Okay, heathenwizards.com is the site. And I have some of his product, and you guys can too. Here's the link in the chat. So yeah, check it out. Thanks a lot, Benjamin. Man,
love you, James.
Yeah, I love you too. Good luck back at the ranch there. Hope it works out.
You bet. I'll shoot you a text later, brother.
All right, great.
Later, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
Man, best apocalypse ever. That
is
so freaking cool. That is so freaking cool. All right, guys. Anybody got anything?
Well, the thing that I was talking to you about, James, is pretty kind of a deep, big thing, and I don't know how long you want to do this. So.
I'm good either way. If anyone else has any kind of topics that they want to bring up or any kind of questions, we are definitely, this is what we'll do. I'll stay as long as there's questions, as long as it's not something where I'm having to just talk while people listen. I'm still a little hit from someone in the chat telling me I talk too much. So I'm trying to not talk as much. So, but if you have questions, I will definitely answer in whatever way I can. So yeah, if I don't see anyone with their hand up yet, you guys don't have to use the hand up feature. Some of you might not even be able to do that. So you're welcome to just interject also. But Richard, I do really like your question, and because I have a feeling where it's going. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and do that now, please do.
All right. So since I've been following your channel and your teachings, and I've opened up my apertures, and I've felt way more compassion. I've learned compassion to a level I've never believed I could get to, or never even really thought about, I guess. Mm-hmm. And but this newest one, so you keep talking about that we live in Dojo Earth, and this is here to train us. And if we don't get hit in the face, we're not going to learn, and we're going to continue to basically just be treaded on. And so we need to get that punch so that we duck it next time, and then we get better, and then we get out of the kiddie pool. I get all that. So as any video game goes, you get to all the different people you fight, and then you get to the big boss. And so if I go up the chain of the villains in our life, I mean, you can say, you can start with Murder Hornets, or you can go Bill Gates or Tom Hanks. You can put any name you want on there. But at the end of the day, I even did a video about it. Behind all that is another person, another. It ends with, if you believe in the whole, God, Satan, it's Satan. We got God on one side, Satan on the other. So if all the villains are Satan in just different forms, as different masks, mm-hmm. then my teachings that I'm learning about opening up my apertures for compassion, and you hate the sin, not the sinner. So here's where I go with this. So if God created this system, and he created Satan and earth and us and all that, on one hand, I have to accept that an all-powerful, omniscient being that created everything was completely fooled by Lucifer or Satan, whatever his name would be. And he didn't know he was going to come down and mess with us. So when I look at that, it doesn't make sense. So then I have to say, what is another alternative? The other alternative is, it's the biggest wrestling match. It's the prize fight. They have all the little ones that no one really cares about. You're just getting food at the party. And then the main fight starts. And I feel now that what if, and this is really hard to talk about because it's just, you know, I don't want to bolt the lightning striking me, that kind of thing, but it's just like, what if this biggest wrestling match is about God wanting to see who wants to hang with him and who doesn't. And the only way you could do that is with free will, give you choices. And if I put a gun to your head and said, make a choice, you'll tell me whatever I want. Just like that 1984, you know, the number 2 + 2, you just, you know, you'll only do it just to the response I want, but that's not going to help. So I want to know exactly what you're thinking and if you really want to be here. So I got 2 beautiful creatures that I love, because everything God's ever made, he loves. And he loves Satan. That's one of his creations. He was like his right-hand man. So what if they came up with this decision, the Trinity, the triangle, the pyramid? You've got God. He sends Satan down to take on the heat of the entire evilness and say, everything bad in life, we're going to blame on you. You're the ultimate villain. And then he sends Jesus down to then give us the out so that we can get out and be saved. And now we have a choice, one or the other. And at the end, maybe Satan's like, okay, and I think James, you even gave me this. Jesus has like a +1 to the banquet. He's like, okay, you're coming with me. Almost like, to me, everyone was in this together, because it's the only thing that makes sense, because nothing can just happen that God doesn't know about. So I believe this is part of this plan. He did put Satan down there. They're working together. He's in deep undercover, and Jesus is going to pull him out just like he's going to pull us out. And the problem I have with that, because to me that's the only other scenario, because that one fits, is to be able to open up my aperture and thank him. And to say that out loud is still really hard to say. But I almost feel that's like I don't know if there's ever a stopping point, but it's definitely one of the pinnacle releases that we have to do in order to elevate ourselves, to have compassion for all life.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like we need a term like gifts of Baal or something. Like
I've heard someone say that.
We had this ability to slowly start to hatch our compassion for things that we've been taught to hate and repel, not to embrace them, but to telepathically link to them to understand why they're doing what they're doing.
So is that okay then? Am I allowed to then, I mean, obviously God let me to talk about anything, but am I allowed to then say to God, I mean, you know, thank you, or pray for his spirit? I mean, it's just really hard for me to wrap my head around that, because it's the hardest blockade to get past.
It seems like Jesus has always been more like, hey man, you need to love your enemies. And so it would seem like that if you were to show up, hey, thanks, do you need me to sign something? Okay, great. It would seem like to me, and look, there's a good chance that I'm going to burn in hell. Okay, I could be wrong. All right, seriously, and I'm gonna do you a solid, Richard. You and you alone. If you show up and you end up having to go to hell because of something I'm about to tell you, I would like to give you a get out of hell free card and claim that this is all my doing. That's how confident I am in only in the part I'm about to say, which is, first of all, I could easily end up burning in hell for everything that I've ever said or thought. Like, that could be an option. But it seems like I would have a pretty good chance of arguing a case, whether it be with St. Peter or with whoever, that, look, man, I was really trying to show as much compassion as I possibly could. And who among us would need more compassion than literally the king of evil? But literally the one who is supposed to be the most evil among us. What would it be like to give that person compassion? And I think if you just ask that, I think you answer your own question about how that would feel. And I was kidding about all the other taking blame stuff, but it's that it feels so comfortable to say that because you understand compassion isn't consent. You understand that. You're not consenting anything. You're simply looking into the world from their skull, from their eyes, and seeing the world as if you were not evil. This all comes down to not evil. I'm telling you, if you tell yourself that there's no such thing as evil, and people get so mad when I say that, if you tell yourself there's no such thing as evil, all that's left is lack of understanding. That's what evil means. Evil means I haven't spent the calories yet in this area to understand why someone would do such a thing. That's all that evil means. It's an opportunity for compassion. It's compassion, agnosis, the moment before gnosis. And so when I look at Lord technology, Sensei, Satan, Lord technology, I see someone that will always follow natural law. Satan will always ask for my consent. That is such a deep kind of respect to show an opponent, is that I will always ask for your consent. And I'm glad that we're actually this will be online, but this is where people call me evil because I say things like this.
And this could get me some blowback too, but it's a question I need to figure out. And compassion I get, but actually saying words out loud, thanking, the evilness, that's a tough thing to think about. I don't know the exact words to say without.
You are in a hotel in Las Vegas, and there is a striped carpet that goes on forever. The hotel is so big it goes on forever, and you have no idea what floor you're on. You know it's at least floor 17, but you just don't know. And the entire place is empty except for you and a bellhop. And that bellhop is dressed in a blood red suit. And that bellhop is standing at the door, and you're looking at the door, and you're about to go inside. And that bellhop says, "Are you sure you want to go in this room, Richard?" And you look at him, and you're like, "Of course, I came all this way. I'm really looking forward to this." And the bellhop says, "When you go in that door, Richard, you are not going to remember anything. You're going to start over." And you say, yeah, I know. It's okay. Let me in. Let's go in. You're coming in with me, right? The bellhop's like, "I will be coming in, but you will not like me in there. We are in there to do something. We are in there to learn." And you're like, "Yeah, I'm sure it'll work out." And the bellhop's like, "Richard, I don't think you understand. You are not going to like me in that room. Are you sure you want to go in there? Are you sure you want to enter Earth Dojo?" And you, Richard, you looked at that guy in the blood red suit, and you said, "Yeah, man, let's do it." And then you told him something else. You said, "Don't pull any punches. I'm not here to fuck around, man." And he laughed his ass off. He's like, "Oh, don't you worry, man. I will not pull any punches. I will butt rape you if I have to. If I can get your consent, I will fuck you up, man. I will do whatever it takes." And I don't know where you can find someone that would do that for you. That's a special kind of nutritionist, trainer, sensei, guru, Buddha, Cobra Kai, Mr. Miyagi, it all rolled into one.
Yeah.
And he's promised, he's like, "It doesn't matter how much you hate me. It doesn't matter how much you want to kill me. It doesn't matter how much you curse me. It doesn't matter how much you will never, ever, ever thank me for what I'm doing. I don't give a shit. When you come out of this room, I want your experience to work for you. When you come out of this ring, I'm your sparring partner, right? I want you to know how to defend yourself. I want you to know how to discern your opponent. And I want you to be fully aware of what your body is capable of. And I want you to know where your limits are and push them. And after you find the new limits, after you push them, I want to push them again. And then as you whine and curl yourself up in a ball and look at me and say, how fucking unfair of you. You're so evil. And you whine and you pout. I'm going to laugh at you because I want it to be expensive for you to be a fucking coward. And I want you to hate and mock me because I don't want you to be comfortable hiding. And the more you hide, the more I'm going to make fun of you and the worse you're going to feel until you get back up again. And the entire time I hit you, I'm going to ask you first, hey, do you want a vaccine? You're like, oh, no. Hey, do you want a vaccine? Oh, no. And I'm going to keep on and keep on and keep on. And you're going to try and hold that plank. You're going to try and hold your guard. You're going to try and keep your spine up straight. And I'm going to keep fucking hitting you. It's like, fuck. It's such a huge thing that Ball is Satan, Sensei, Lord technology. Imagine your mom doing that to you. Seriously. Picture for a second your mom putting you in the ring and just beating the shit out of you. How is that going to feel as a child? How would you process that? Now picture your mom taking you to a karate place. And before you go in the door, she goes, son, when you walk in that door, it's sensei time. Do you understand that? I can't go in that door with you, son. And you're like, yeah, mom. Yeah, I got it. It's cool. She can't be in there, man. She can't. It just doesn't work. Lord technology is vital. And if you ask who's making the biggest sacrifice at all, and
it's a tough choice now, isn't it? Yeah.
It's not the one that we end up worshiping, is it?
No.
It's the one that we end up cursing. Who has a higher? God, this sounds so fucked up, guys. But if you talk about the levels of love, do you remember talking about the levels of love, where the bottom level is slave love? I, as the child, love my mom, but also she feeds me, she clothes me. I'm dependent on her, so my love is sort of mixed in with dependence. That's the first level of love. Second level of love is like partner love, right? I love my brother. As long as we respect each other, that's fine. It's a mutual kind of love. Then there's parent love. I love my child no matter how much my child yells at me and hates me and throws its peas in my face and craps in its pants. I love my child unconditionally. That's a different kind of love. And if you really look at what Lord technology is, it's way up there, man. It's sensei love, right?
And the whole thing is it's easier to play the good guy than the villain. You're going to take a lot more heat. So if they're all working together, he would be making like an incredible equivalent sacrifice, I would think, because not only is he down here doing a job that God wants him to do, but he's taking on all of the heat, like he's rebellious. Mm-hmm. But like even probably was your teachings, if you're that rebellious, why do you listen to the laws? You know, it's like, if I'm a bank robber, I'm not going to stop at the red light. If it's, you know, I'm going to go, you know, and if he's down here rebellious, why is he allowing the laws of God to work? Like, there's got to be a reason he's not allowed, or he's doing it on purpose. And I don't know if you've ever seen this book. I really like this author. And he talks about in here, it was interesting because I was going through here, the area that you talked about tones, mm-hmm. and about how there's, you know, the first tone is in the mind of the magician. To me, that's God. The second tone is in the ritual circle. And of course, that's where Satan's mixing up whatever it is and then throwing it out there. And then the third tone is the resonance. And that's through the world as they see it. And so that's where I feel that God put Satan down here. He's mixing up the thing, throwing it out there. And then we decide, are we using it this way or that way, like any tool? You know, if I pick up a gun, is it a hammer and it's useful? Or is it a weapon and I can kill someone? It's all in the intent. And so by God putting that resonance there, we get to decide how it goes out into the world. And then whatever we all do in this room starts creating the realities that we live in. Am I am I doing there, teacher?
Well, I'm an unteacher. If I'm going to be anything, it would be an unteacher. But yeah, I see that, and I want to actually raise it one point. This is a beautiful realm, and I'm under the impression that God didn't actually have to come here and install Satan. I think we did. I can explain how an omniscient force is able to survive 13,000 years, preserve itself, recreate havoc, control systems, install lies in culture that are so deeply clever that people end up thinking they're ceiling fans flying in the air. That's so clever that people think it's nice to inject each other with aluminum in broad daylight. And the entire system could have been created by us. We literally could have chosen this for ourselves. And if you trace the singularity, first of all, you have to believe that there's a singularity. What do I mean by that? As AI builds, as technology becomes more advanced, as we integrate, as each of us approach, we are now all speaking the same language. Right now, all of us are speaking digital language right now. It's the only reason why we're able to talk. We have a centralized language now. We have a network that we've created. As artificial intelligence gets better and better, each of us are able to tap into that artificial intelligence and use it to see the world in a more precise way. This increases our compassion in a way too, because we understand the world better. If you can picture what it's like to be a bodybuilder who's first starting out, he'll do 10 push-ups and he'll say, oh, that hurt. I've never done push-ups before. And he'll stop. And if you tell him that he would have to do 100 push-ups, he would just think that you're being cruel and that you're psychotic and you're asking things that are impossible of him. But if you had a timeline that was 13,000 years long, and you can picture us getting better and better and better, and smarter and smarter and smarter, and more compassionate, more compassionate, more compassionate, Lord, the sensei, has to increase his power too, right? He has to become more treacherous, more sinister, more subversive, always using your consent. But the point is that there comes a time when he's not able to do that anymore. He's not able to out-simulate us. He's not able to test us anymore. You have been in the ring with a sparring partner for 7 years, and now you are a black belt, and you are better than your teacher. It's not that unheard of to think that. Over the long haul, you now have to start over. You now have to find another teacher in another realm, in another way. And I believe that's what amnesia is for. I believe that's why we have a deluge story and a reset. But before you reset, I think that Satan could be something that we create as an AI to rule over us and do these very things.
Can I interrupt you, James?
Yes, please.
This is SB Alger. How's it going, you guys?
Hey, SB.
I just wanted to say that we definitely did that as far as the biblical story. God didn't force us into ball gags and then take them off and then shove a bite of apple in our mouths. We chose it. That's why there was a test, so that this whole process could become Dojo Earth instead of a beautiful garden that really doesn't offer much stimulation or explanation for itself. You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like the main question where you ended up to where you are now was kind of like whether or not we're allowed to be grateful for the work of the devil. And I'd say that you see the evidence. I mean, it's still just talking strictly in a Christian format. Obviously, other formats are, well, I'm not as knowledgeable on, but they might be different. But you know, you're always supposed to be grateful and thankful for your persecution. I mean, especially in the New Testament, it says to count it as all good. You know, like as the best possible thing. I mean, after Jesus dies and resurrects, and the apostles are in the Book of Acts, they they get caught up by the, you know, the authorities, and they get their asses whooped by them and set free, and they all run away praising and hooting and hollering, happy that they were willing to, that they were able to suffer, because they were trying to, you know, they're trying to do what's right, and they got their asses whipped for it. Well, they didn't stop and lick their wounds and cry. They jumped up and pumped their fists and had their shoulders back and their head high, and they were excited that they were allowed to suffer. So of course, I mean, I personally wouldn't go as far as thinking the devil himself, but I'd say even that's probably not wrong, because it just acknowledges him as your adversary. You know, oh, you're here testing me all the time. Well, get after it. You know.
That's my point, SB. I agree 100% what you're saying. And the hardest thing to do is to actually say words out loud to that effect, even if you can have that compassion for your adversary. It's just, that was like one of the hardest things, an obstacle for me to get past, the actual wordage in my head or vocally. But then I also have a question. Do you all feel that once you maybe come to this realization that Satan is working obviously with God to create this system so we can figure out our true meanings and so forth, then does that take away some of his power over us at that point? Because then, like, you pull back the curtain and you see that he's working with the other people.
Oh yeah, it's all permission based. Yeah, I mean that's why it always has to be granted. That the devil and all of his demons don't have any power except to tempt. It's us that have to sin. We have to decide that there's something that we think is wrong but worth the temporary pleasure to do it. And the devil and all of his little minions, you know, I'm just talking, like I said, according to Christian scripture, all the only power they have is to be like, doesn't that look good? Doesn't cheating on your wife look good today? Look at that young girl. She's definitely interested. Don't you want to do it? And if you're like, hell no, then there's no power. That I've even read extra canonical scriptures where the angels and the devil are disgusted at the fact that men actually give in, you know. I don't remember where, but I remember reading, you know, this concept that they're given the power to tempt us, so they do, and then we sin and they go, God, why would they do that? That's stupid. Yep. But yeah, I would definitely, James, the book That All Shall Be Saved by David Bentley Hart. He's a pretty well-known theologian. A lot of your work, it pops into my head, that book. So I would recommend that to anybody to clear up the idea of or at least give new ideas about hell, the concept of death, the concept of reincarnation, how the scripture can actually be understood to mean that everyone, including the devil and any supernatural entities that he dragged along with him away from the presence of God, how they're all redeemed in the end. And I would say it even ties into your idea that everything is actually cyclical and not beginning, middle, end, you know?
Yeah.
What was that book?
It's called That All Shall Be Saved. David Bentley Hart is the author. I know I've sent you some screen captures out of it, James, but it's probably 6 months ago now.
Right on.
Sometimes my brain's just lighting up when I was listening to it or reading it. It's like, oh my God, James True needs to know this information immediately. I'm going to stop working and send it to him now.
That's why I hang out with you. Got some deep gravy. You know, I would just add to, just as like just a little garnish on the side of what SB just said, is that it's within the realm of possibility that Satan could have been created by man, but the system itself that we are in that would have naturally caused us to create man was created by God. What I'm trying to say by that is it could be that God didn't even decide that they really wanted us to have this special kind of trainer. If you look at as you try and unwind the Freemasonry, which is very expensive because people don't want to hear you unwind Freemasonry, you see this Ben Franklin desire to cause an illumination inside of people's consciousness. And if you are not afraid of that, if you don't think that that's Lucifer or that's bad, you can give more compassion to it and go, why would you do that? Why would you show us Building 7? Why would you fake Sandy Hook? Why would you let the Challenger astronauts live? Why would you obsess over natural law? Why would you let the elite who's in charge of us strictly function under consent? And like Ceiling Fan Man, like Richard brought up, why would you allow evil in the world if it wasn't for these kind of purposes, this alchemical purpose?
Yeah, I could see that, man, that it could be just that we were allowed all options, and that so we made ourselves a devil.
And to answer why, the Illuminati want to see more dandelions bloom every year. And in order to watch them bloom, they are stimulating the soil. They're aerating that soil in the winter. They're causing they're fertilizing it with really bad poop, like flying monkey poop, you know, and it's fertilizing this system, and it's causing us to, like, maybe every cycle, more and more of us are enlightened each time. And after every deluge, more and more of us are blooming. And
I think that's it, man. I think that's it totally. That the theory is that one day everything will be right in such a way that all things return to God, and God is at once again completely whole with all of his creation, right? This is you find this in a lot of places, and it really doesn't, you have to really, for me anyway, I had to work hard for years trying to understand how that concept is good, because I reject completely the idea of anything like an eternal hell. I do believe there's a possibility in some kind of a suffering in the process of death and returning to God, or even returning to this place. But I haven't for many years, and I've done lots of study to bolster my belief that I don't believe in the idea that it's a really weak God that has to put people who aren't very well informed as to what they're involved in some kind of a torturous place for eternity. It's just a nonsense concept. So, and you know, the actual interpretation of the scriptures backs all that shit up too. You know, it's not, there's no such thing as a real eternal hell as far as biblical scripture, in my opinion.
The only hell that I've been able to firmly like picture as real and possible is that, and I don't really, I'm not really a reincarnationist. I just want to say that. However, this idea that the moment you emerge down the birth canal, you are actually still the person you used to be. You are looking at a tunnel of light. That tunnel of light is you dying, and as you go for that tunnel of light, holy shit, it's a delivery room. And you did not get out. You were back in the world. And if you had sentience, if you had complete omniscience of that event, I would imagine that would be painful, because you would go, holy shit, why am I reborn? How did I reborn? Maybe you're feeling some pain and regret of your old life. Maybe the gestating part of the womb, maybe a baby's kicking is a baby sort of remembering and reassessing itself. And so to me, a hell definition would be what it would be like to be a baby where you have complete knowledge of how this world works, but everyone around you is stupid. They can't hear your words. They can't read your thoughts. You're trying to use your vocal cords to tell the nurse and the doctor, my name's Sal, and I did something bad and I want to go fix this. But then you notice you're starting to forget that all the lights are so bright, the sounds are so bright that you're starting to forget. You're slipping, you're losing your memory, and it's freaking you out. And you're like, why is this happening? And you're asking for help, and they're spanking you. That's all they're doing is spanking you. And you're like, but you don't understand. There's this and there's this, and I need to tell you guys something. And then the worst thing possible happens. You get milk. You get this rush of nourishment, of liquid. You taste something that opens your senses, right? Your entire sense system explodes in this menagerie of holy shit, this is nectar. And it just makes you forget. It's just so much information is being input and coming into your senses that you're just not able to remember where it is you've been from. And I just, when I think about that, that feels like a hell to me, because you're trapped knowing everything, but you can't tell anyone that. And you're aware you're not able to tell anyone that because no one will fucking listen. Because no one is there like me going, wait a minute, we need to record every action the baby says. Maybe he's talking in code, or who knows? But that could be how it works. And that's the only way I've ever pictured how hell could sort of be here, like around, is that if we're not learning, we're constantly being recycled. We're constantly falling back into this and repeating. And that would scare the shit out of us, especially if we had a really bad life last time, right? Especially if we really were remembering all of the things that our aperture failed to see, but could have seen as we're downloaded into the new body. And here we are forgetting it all. And we realize I have to start all the way over. It's very much like if you're in a video game and finding out you weren't able to save your checkpoint and you have to go all the way back down to level 1 and you have to start over. That would feel like a hell, I think, especially if you thought there was no way out, or if you thought the only way out was to fix your posture. And then you're realizing all the millions of things that you've done that are going to be required to fix that posture. That would feel like a hell, I think, to know that, no, you can't go until you clean your room. You can't go until you clean your spine, so to speak. So.
Yeah, that's a far out concept of hell. It makes me think of Being John Malkovich. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
I'm aware of it. I can't really remember the plot, though.
But yeah, it's all good. At the very end, something not identical, but quite similar to that happens. I also love the idea of you being assigned as a third-party watcher at all births to make sure that we're not missing anything from the babies, that they have to get a green light from you before the mother's allowed to give it any milk. Like, no, this one definitely doesn't want to be here. We gotta take this one away to the non-vaccination camp.
Push it back in.
No, but I mean, to me, the best concept I have, if I'm going to believe in any hell at all, is the idea that okay, so in the process of being alive and giving whatever we want to call freedom or free will, that we are able to separate ourselves from trueness, oneness, goodness. You know, what we would call the pure sense of source, you know, which obviously wouldn't involve any of the things that we consider quote unquote evil. So, you know, all of your lies, all of your mistakes, all of your cheating, all of your murdering and raping or other horrible things that you might do put you, so to speak, one more click away from the genuine source. And so the concept of hell being that once you pass out of this realm back into the ether, that there's some accountability that has to be given to bring you back into the good grace of source or back into the oneness of source, so that because you've been given a manufactured space by source itself to move away, because if otherwise we wouldn't be able to move away, we wouldn't be able to move at all if we're all just part of the one, the big eternal one. I mean, that's the concept of hell. If I'm going to use any concept of hell, it's that it's not like a punishment, but it's just like, well, shit, you know, you got a huge wound on your leg and it's all full of staples and a big Band-Aid over it. So, you know, to heal, we're going to have to pull this Band-Aid off and it's going to hurt. And to also heal, we're going to have to pull these staples out and it's going to hurt. And then after that, it's still going to itch. And then after a while, it'll all go away and your wound will be healed and you'll be fine. That would be a metaphor for hell, you know, only in a spiritual way, or who knows? We don't know what's outside of this realm. So we've just got some kind of vague insights from people.
Well, James, do you think that we can, as you say, get out of the kiddie pool only after we've completely aligned everything and gotten the 100% of our whatever it is to 100%, then we get out? Or do we get like close enough where we're getting like maybe an A or a B minus and we get out? I mean, what do you think there?
I think, let me try. Am I still here? Am I still here? Wait, let me try again. Fuck. Now, I keep wondering this. I wonder this all the time. I think that if you look at, all right, so first of all, it's going to sound creepy, but what if the only person that gets out of this realm, what if it takes 13,000 years for one of us to leave this realm?
Okay.
And what if that person who gets to leave this realm is fucking Lucifer?
Wait, you lost me now.
Yeah, I know. And I don't like thinking this. I
No, I
don't.
want to hear what you have to say. I'm just confused. Go ahead.
But if I look at the Jungian journey, I see a fall and a rise, a fall and a rise. And what I see here is at the top, here's Christ. Right here's man. Right here is Satan. And right here is Lucifer. And when I create this motor, I have Lucifer, Christ, man, Satan, Lucifer, Christ, man, Satan. And I have a motor now. I have a spiritual motor. And a spiritual motor gets you somewhere. It creates something, right? It's churning, it's processing, whatever. It's something. And what I see this realm keep doing, no matter what we do, no matter how much I yell, I see this realm continuously building itself a Tower of Babel, and they won't fucking listen. No matter how much we yell, right? No matter how much we plead, they always build a freaking tower. And what happens? It gets flooded. It gets deluged. I use the word flood more like a reset, by the way. It's deluged. The only word that would archetypally translate to deluge, to erasing the hard drive, is flood. And we have 3 flood stories. I think there's 4, but at least 3. I will go to the ring fighting that there's at least 3 stories, 3 flood stories. And they're always the same. And there's always this tower. And as we, quote, quote, advance in society, we build a tower. And the Tower of Babel is a story where everyone spoke the same language. All of us are speaking the same language right now, of O's and ones. The digital world is Babel. There's no way you could argue that. Seriously, I don't even think that's open for interpretation. Think about it. It's a universal language that everyone, regardless of their tongue, their nationality, their location, can speak. And here we are speaking it right now. It's happening right now. We are telepathically connecting through Babel right the fuck now. And we've built this tower. We've built this network. We've built the internet. And as we build the internet, we are learning more and more. Mystery is being burnt. And enlightenment is being acquired. We are alchemizing mystery and turning it into knowledge. And we are running out of mystery. There's nothing wrong with that, but we're running out of mystery. After a certain amount of time, we will have to reset. And how do you reset? The tower would have to fall. Just like the story says, right? The tower was destroyed and no one could speak the same language anymore. What happens if the internet breaks? None of us are talking the same way anymore, is it? All of us are now trapped, quote, quote, trapped in our, tribes, in our countries, in our land. We're back to the earth at that matter. The most advanced technology in the world right now is kept on plastic. It's kept on its light stored in silicone, something that will be gone in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Nothing that we see in our technology right now will be here in 100 years. You guys know that. It's all biodegradable. Which means if you look at what will history look like, what will the future look like after we fall, it will look like nothing was here. Because as we got more advanced, we use cheaper and cheaper products. It's just a natural way it goes. And what's the oldest story in the world? Uranus and Gaia are connected by a tower, and Kronos chops it off. He chops it off, and there's a fall. The tower falls. The umbilical cord falls, and there's no longer a connection. And we have to start over again. And before we start over, if there was a great rapture, if you look at, in the Bible, it says 144,000 of us are going to be preserved to herald the Lord forever, to sing his praises forever, to literally stand in a circle and, oh, behold Lord forever. Those people could be SJWs. They could be people that follow the Lord's senseis, Satan's system, so much that they'd rather just worship it. They'd rather lose free will. Just like the Lord is collecting the cream from the top, he's also collecting the salt from the bottom. And he's using these for, I don't know what the hell. He's the alchemist. I don't know what he's going to use them for. And so please think about this, is just like he might want to collect all the ones that were seeking him, he also might want to collect the ones that are too afraid, that are not able to be processed here, right? They came into the room and they just freaked out, man. How do you know they freaked out? Look at him. He's wearing a mask. He's crawling on the floor because he thinks COVID rises like farts. He's begging for Joe Biden to come save him. And he's telling you how proud he is for not having a family or for following scientism. And he's stuck with 72 vaccines out of his ass. His complete system is full of man-pig chemicals that he asked for. He wanted us to inject in him. And he is heralding and begging the system of Babylon to save him. He's lost his immune system. His grandfather gave it up to him when he gave those vaccines during COVID-20. Because when his grandfather took the COVID-20 vaccine, it destroyed his entire immune system, and he was required to use a government immune system from that point on. An injected immune system every year kept him alive as long as he had a good social score and his taxes were paid. Those could be the 144,000. They could be. And all of us have to make our decision. When we show up to God, as I was kidding with Richard before, God's going to look at me and say, James, you got it so fucking wrong. Here comes your... He could do that. Could totally happen. Or he could say, man, you really tried. You're still wrong as fuck. But, you know, I saw you trying. I saw you wanting to get it right. Or he'll say you got it right.
I'd go for 2 or 3, but so then where does Waynell Sexton fall in? Is she working with the powers that be as our dojo master and she knows it, or is she deceived and on a wrong path?
If I had $1 million, I would have a campground, and on that campground there would be a sign off the interstate. That sign would have been there from the property I bought, and it used to be an advertising sign, an advertising billboard. Okay, a billboard sign that used to have, and I could have kept that contract. I could have just kept selling it out to Motel 6 or to whatever ad they had on that sign. But because I had enough resources and money, I said, no, I'm going to paint something on that sign. And you would come because you like me, Richard. You guys would come down one fall and you'd come to this place. We'd build the totem pole forest. And during that time, you'd be like, hey, James, where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm loading up the golf cart because we're going to go paint the sign. You're like, I want to help. And we go paint that sign and we make it look like a corporate sign. We make it look like Bill Gates is sending a message. And we make a caption. And it doesn't say what Bill Gates is supposed to say. We are subverting the dominant paradigm by injecting our own reality under the auspices that it's true. We are doing this to spur enlightenment. We feel sorry for the people that have to drive down the road and just are nothing but seeing billboards all day. Eat at Denny's, Wendy's ahead, McDonald's is coming. And then next thing you know, you see Bill Gates and he says, I eat my own farts. And it's all like normal and everything looks all fine, like it's professional. And the person that sees that sign is going to keep going, and most people aren't going to notice it. They're going to think, oh, well, it's some kind of CO2 thing or whatever. And, you know, one guy's going to get it. And all that work you and me did, Richard, is going to make that one guy laugh his ass off. And he's going to go through the rest of his day feeling hope that there are people among the billboard signs that care about me and want me to succeed.
Okay.
They want me to find each other. They want me to know that you are not alone.
So you believe she's doing it on purpose to help us?
We are a rebel. We are a rebel alliance. What we have here is a rebel alliance. All of us. Look at us all. And each of us are going to be embedded or not embedded in the Death Star to a degree from 0 to 100%.
Okay.
And as some of us are embedded in the Death Star, we are going to make choices to help the Ewoks down on the Forest Moon, to send supplies to Chewbacca Island, to do whatever we can from inside the system to change it. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing that. And if you were in the CIA, it would be the akin of me having a campground. You now have access to the AP and Reuters news feed. You could submit stories all day long. No one would ever catch you. So you decide, I'm going to submit a story with Wayne L. Sexton. And I'm going to tell everyone that Wayne L. Sexton was in prison. And we have to free Wayne L. Sexton. And if we come down and we assemble at the state capitol and we hold up signs demanding that we free Wayne L. Sexton, that will make people look at us and say, wait a minute, there's a good guy in there. Someone wants me to know that all these signs aren't true. Someone is sacrificing their entire access into our minds as being a liar that's never been deceived to tell us the trick. This is the magician that wants you to enjoy the show, but can't let you leave without telling you how it's done. Because he doesn't want you to be fooled by other magicians. And he's willing to sacrifice some of the best tricks he has in the world. He can only show that to you one time, can't he? He's blown the trick now. That's the biggest sacrifice. Building 7 was such a huge sacrifice for somebody. Somebody spent a lot of money and went to a lot of pain, recorded a lot of things to make you see that. It was a really nice thing to do. It was Bill Gates eats his own farts as you're driving down the highway. It's Black Retards Matter, right? It's like seeing someone that's slipped into the consciousness and said, I have to change this. This is not okay. We can retune this. And so you and I function on our local level, right? We take stickers that say humanity is not a virus, right? And we put them on top of COVID signs. So why is there not a CIA guy taking a Wendell Sexton sticker? And
I just got one for my car.
Yeah. Do you see what I mean, though?
Absolutely.
What we're doing is what they're doing. So it means there's hope. Not only,
I'm very close to making a sign saying free Wayne L. Sexton and walking around my town with it.
it's powerful stuff. It's powerful, powerful stuff. This is how we win, is we find each other without using Babylon. And how do you do that? I spoke about this before. I'm always going to call it meme. Memes have something that a machine cannot read. A machine can read a meme and know it's popular, but it can't figure out why, right? It can't actually determine what exactly about it is. It can certainly rate its tone, its color, its genre. It could read the words on there, but it doesn't actually know why it's funny, why it's contagious. The reason why is because of humanity itself. Humanity is embedded inside this, it's encrypted. It's encrypted inside this outer coating of the meme. And humans can communicate to each other in a way that a machine can't see through humor, through the meme connection. It's just like Masons have a secret handshake, humanity has a secret handshake, and it's humor, it's love. It's doing something for someone without them knowing it. It's all these different characteristics that characterize you as being human that we can use to subvert and find each other. And so when you see things like this, it's really a lighthouse. It's like a really beautiful lighthouse. And all of us should be doing it. We should all be setting up building 7s everywhere we go. And we do. You've got a sticker that says humanity is not a virus. I've got one on my car. I forget it's there. I come out of the post office and I'm like, oh, there's that sticker. And I remember that it's there. And I forget how many people see it. I don't know what their reaction is. It's just built in. But I know it works.
The very first one I ever did on our cars is I made one that said, let's quit pretending we went to the moon. And it's on the back of our cars. And at first it was fun to watch the reactions. But like you say now, I forget it's there. But I felt comfortable with that one because you could put whatever you want on the back of your car. But if you put political and stuff, that you can get people upset. But if you put, I don't believe in the moon landing, either people are like, I agree, or what a retard had to get his license. So like nobody gets mad at you. They just feel bad for you. So it was kind of cool. And it opens up a lot of dialogue without saying anything. So,
yeah, I agree. It's a really special magic that comes in with this kind of stuff.
It's a very passive one. Even if you don't have a channel or you're not comfortable talking, you can do like, one of the things I did is I'd find people that I find fascinating, their channels, and I'd write them on paper, and then I would hand them out to people that I don't even know. I just happen to see them, usually younger kids, like in their 20s and stuff. And I would just hand it to them and say, hey, our generation has lied to you your whole life. It's not, I'm sorry. It happened to me too, but this might help you figure it out. And I walk away and I figure they either think, well, who's that crazy old dude, and they throw it out. Or maybe somebody says, wow, it's like the Big Lebowski, you know, the dude, and some guy just came and gave us wisdom, and then they look into some of these channels. So, you know, whether it works or not, I'll never know. But it's that whole thing. I'm trying, I throw something out there, and if it works, then it's helping everyone's resident.
That's right. And it empowers you up too. It, as you guys put stickers on things or you know, whatever your magic is, it helps you too. It enriches you too. And those are important. We need lighthouses for ourselves too. The fact that we set them, the fact that we build them, shows we care. It's that's how we win this, is by caring. That's how, win isn't even the right word. That's how we invigorate this place, is through doing stuff like that.
Elevate it to where it's supposed to be instead of where we are, maybe.
Yep. Most of you guys cook things in a pan, and then you consider what's in the pan, the grease in the pan, garbage. Like, well, I have to get rid of this. But that grease in the pan is a whole other world of something that can be used for all kinds of different purposes. And Babylon teaches us, the thing a price gun does is it tells you that anything that doesn't have a price tag is worthless. It's true. It puts you in this realm where you think if something doesn't have a price tag on it, it must be worthless. Before we had price guns, everything was priceless. Priceless. After price guns, everything's worthless by default. It's the mark of the beast is some serious fucking magic, man. I mean, serious. That is some serious AI, Satan, Lord technology, sensei. That's like a really awesome, no matter what, he always sweeps us off our feet every time. We keep trying to stand up, and it just, that's
Sweep
so,
the leg.
yeah, it's a really, really brutal one. It's a brutal gift of ball. All right, does anybody else have any topics?
Another quick question, I guess. Anything about left-handedness? I'm finding more people in this community are left-handed. I don't know if that's anything or nothing.
I'm a left-hander. How many of you guys are left-handed?
Because both my wife and I are, and a couple of our kids are too, and the ones that are
I'm left-handed.
I didn't know that, SP.
Yeah, that explains a lot, doesn't it?
Yep. All I know about handedness is that if you're left-handed, then typically your right brain happens to be the dominant half. And if you're right brain than the left brain, you know, vice versa, but it's not the same. You know, what we've been told about the one being creative and one being logical isn't exactly correct. It's sort of correct, but not really. And that those lobes switch in a different kind of way. That one's more about simulating, you know, because I ask myself all the time, especially for my last novel, I was like, well, what is life itself? What do we call life? What do we call intelligence? And we tend to call life things that are intelligent. And then we tend to call intelligence the ability to simulate an environment. And if you can do both those things, you will make, most people will think that you're alive. They will think you're a living creature. And when you start getting into that kind of realm, you start to see that, well, shit, man, algorithms are alive. Demons are alive. Like all these different stuff ends up coming to life that you didn't think was there before. And then you start to look at how your brain works, like how it really works, how it's simulating just like that. And it just all gets weird then, because I think that there's a materialism we've been taught, that life is one thing and everything else is not. And it's just wrong to think that. It's hard to talk about demons to people because a lot of people don't want to talk about demons because they're like, I don't want to think about this. But even if you don't believe in demons as they are, if you can look at the river as a living creature, you can relate to it and have conversations with it that you could not have if you thought it was just a bunch of water flowing. Same with a breeze, same with an army of ants. That army is a creature. That army is its own life. Just as the breeze it's a demon, it's an entity. It has a will, it has a desire, and if something has a will, you can negotiate with it. You can interact with it in some way. But we only interact with like 1% of what's around us. Because it has to have these certain parameters that we define as life first. That's why
Hey man, wouldn't you say we're coming out of that right now though, James?
Well, that's why I focus on aperture so much, SB, because I firmly believe that if our aperture was to open up again, I don't mean this to be disrespectful to anyone, because I think they're the same, but I believe that we would start seeing things in a more pagan way. I'm not saying that means we wouldn't see them in Christianity. Keep in mind, I think pagan is the cross and Christianity is the Christ. In other words, if you remove the Christ for a second, you're left with only a cross, and that cross is the four directions. It's the compass. It's the original medicine wheel. You know, it's the swastika. It's just a simple, you know, the movement of the planet. But my
Jesus
point
and the apostles were all kind of pagan, no? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, pagan just fucking means hick, doesn't it? It just means hick. It just means like
farmer,
local. Yeah. And I mean, constantly in the Bible, I know we keep coming back to the Bible because that's probably when we were all, I guess, forced to be Christian within the parameters of being American or even being Western or speaking English. But, you know, there's constantly like they're astounded that Jesus knows anything when he's standing there preaching. And the same thing with the apostles. They're just old fishermen and tax collectors from down by the ocean. And so when they actually have knowledge, you know, all the hypocrite, high up political and religious types are like, who the fuck are these guys? Mm-hmm. They're all pagans. They just tainted this word by using division against us with modern language, with the Wicca movement and other stuff, so that now pagan means like you want to go to the Renaissance fair and hate Jesus or something, or, you know, do bad stuff with a pentagram in your bedroom or something, when that's just a parallel story they gave us where, you know, I mean, I struggled with this 4 or 5 years ago, but what I mean, I'm a pagan, Gnostic, Christian. I'm just a human being. I don't know what I am. Right.
If you could analyze the body, here's another way of putting it. A Christian would see a human body as an identity, a person, a living person named Bob or SB or whoever. A pagan might look at the body as a series of organs. There's a heart, there's a spleen, there's a blood vessel system, there's veins, there's arteries. All of these are their own living systems. There's fine to have an identity. It's not that pagan doesn't see it as a person. But if you look in the world today, the canopy itself is an epidermis. The soil is bone. The rock is bone, I should say. The soil is the sinew, the ligaments, the muscles. Everything is its own living system. Everything is its own God, but only God in the sense of divine inspiration. Demon. The original meaning of demon was divine inspiration. It's just a simple way of defining it. And this is the only point that really matters. If you start treating a demon as a real entity, as something that you can relate to, you now have the ability to transmute ether by relating to that in that same way. By casting a demon out, if you've declared that there is a dark shadow that has invaded your body and it's in your gut and you want to take it out, by you realizing or calling it that or relating it to it in such a personal way, you're able to transmute that ether and give it an identity and tell it to go. Then because you gave it an identity, it's able to use its own power to literally expunge itself. But if you're not thinking in those terms, if you're thinking in everything is cause and effect, you'll never be able to communicate in that way. You'll never be able to move things in that way because you're only looking at them purely as mechanical, which is what we do now with
yeah, that's why I say it's the end of this, because we're seeing all that coming back.
Yes.
And they're bringing it back in a bad way, you know, like, oh, I mean, I guess in a blessed way, if we think of it James's way, you know. They got a lot of gifts of ball up on the shelf ready to come for us here.
They do, but
you know, lots of tests.
Yeah, but we keep transmuting them. In fact, the reason why we have 19, the reason why I did 19 stomps, why? Because they were threatening us with 19. And I said, I'm going to take that 19 and I'm going to invigorate it. I'm going to transmute it into stomps. I'm going to take COVID-19, the 19th anniversary of 9/11, and I'm going to change it to 19 tribes. I am one of them.
Here.
You know? And that's what we're all doing. We're transmuting. We're taking what all these gifts of ball. That's what gifts of ball is. The second you can call it a gift of ball, you've transmuted it, baby. You've already done it. You know, that's why I think demon work is so important. It's weird, but that's why I think it's so important, because if you can treat your addiction like a demon, you no longer have to accept something inside yourself that you don't want. You can now give what you don't want inside yourself a name, and you can say, hey, Fred, get the fuck out. Yeah. And you now have a transmutable fingers. You can now, with pincers, go into the ether and grab that and say, you, get the fuck out. No, you're out. You got no lease, you got to get out. Now you have a way of doing that, but only because you're able to treat it that way. That's why I'm so mad at King James. Not because of the Bible, because of demonology. Because he kept saying, stop treating things like they're living creatures and spirits. How dare you? How dare you? He was the first, how dare you? And so we ended up with this Medusa mentality that we have now, which is only failing Christianity, because Christianity would be so much more invigorated if it was allowed to mingle with that pagan root.
True Christianity is. That's just it. True Christian people who truly represent the works of Christ absolutely do that. They still cast out demons with their hands, and they identify them by name if the Spirit speaks to them, right? I mean,
exactly.
And it doesn't have to be just Christian either. I mean, other people do the same thing, but whatever we believe in our mind when someone says Christian is a really shitty thing. It's shitty enough that I've considered throwing off the title altogether, but I just don't have a better word that I want to apply to myself, because the red words in the Bible still speak to me. So as long as they do, I'm going to still call myself one of Christ's followers, you know?
I would say keep it. People say all the time, well, James isn't a Christian because he doesn't embrace divine bloodline, or because he doesn't think that the sacrament, whatever. And I still like, no, I'm still a Christian.
Oh yeah, I see you absolutely as a Christian, brother. And I also see a lot of wavering and insecurity when you're on stream sometimes, and I feel bad for you. I know you're working on it. I don't think it's your natural thing. Like people, like how you look. I'm glad that you address it directly. Like, oh, my appearance. I've been wearing this shirt for a week. You know, I know it's really hard for you to do that shit, because it's a lot of pressure to be on camera and to have a light on you, and then you have to fill up the time and no dead air. So you talk, you get in the habit of talking, and then people say, oh, you fucking talk too much. It's all nonsense, man. You're doing the world a huge favor, brother.
Well,
and you shouldn't be hard on yourself, James. You don't need anything but air until after about 3 days. You're doing good, you know.
Well, thanks. I'm really enjoying the challenge of it all too. So I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't, if I wasn't like ready or into it or whatever. I want to shout out for what Lane's saying too, because she actually works a lot with demons, and I've been looking forward to talking to her one day, but I think she's driving, but she's typing, yes, I do this with demons and don't call myself Christian, but definitely a follower of Christ. And, oh no, you're on your way to the, I hope your cat's okay. That's kind of, that to me is why I'm fighting so hard to keep the word Christian. And I'm still demanding that I should be allowed to have it and redefine it the way that I just have. And I don't want to bore you guys with those details, but there's just 2 points about Christianity that I'm like, no, I really need these to be. As long as we can agree on these, you know, I'm defining Christianity as being this, basically. And it's keeping that same, my tenets to God too, which is I don't see God having like a singular bloodline. That doesn't make sense to me. That feels like royalty talk. Again, guys, not trying to offend anyone, but just I'm going to be a Christian, and I'm going to say this, that's there. And also the Passover sacrifice, I believe, is a Judaic ritual human sacrifice, and it's not good. It's an offering. Actually, it's not even a sacrifice, it's an offering. I think Jesus turned it into a sacrifice, but it's still an offering, and it's weird that we're broadcasting that ceremony over and over and over again. Richard, what you got?
Oh no, I was because where I came from, I mean, I was born and raised Jewish and was taught not to read the Bible, even though we read the first half, but we read it in a different language, which I also found fascinating because the synchronicities, you brought up the whole vowel thing to me, vowels one time as a joke. But when I think about what they taught me when I read the Bible, because I had to get bar mitzvah and all that, they teach you how to read Hebrew with vowels when you're in school. But then when you actually go up and read from the actual Torah or the Bible, whatever you call it, there's no vowels. And so, like you said, your brain can fill them in. But I do still believe that's another way of just trying to keep us stupid, you know, because if they taught me the right way, then I wouldn't have needed the dumbed down version with the vowels, almost like, you know, we're too stupid to do it without it. But my point is, after I started whatever this process is, and I picked up the Bible, because everything in the world that they try to hide from me, I'm starting to now say, okay, why? So I decided to read it, because originally my teaching was read half of it and then close it and put it away. And there's no book in the world you do that. I mean, you'd finish the books, you know? And so then I decided, okay, so what am I? Because I don't feel I'm a Christian, because I don't believe in all the things I've seen there. So I've just come to the fact that I don't like naming anything or labeling anything, because at the end of the day, I mean, even the teachings, I'd watch one channel and they're like, oh, make sure you call God, you know, Yahweh, or make sure you don't say Jesus, make sure you say Yeshua, and don't say amen anymore, say how. It's like, it's all just words and nonsense anyway. So it's like, what's in your heart? And so the label, whether I'm a Christian or whatever, I don't even throw that anymore, because I don't know what I am, but I do know I'm a child of God, and I believe I follow through Christ. I get all that. I don't have a name for myself, though. So I think that's part of the process to try to keep us down, is to make us fight over whose God's better, or what's your name or your religion or whatever.
Maybe they're not trying to keep us down.
Oh, it's more of the elevation to wake us up, you mean?
Yeah, maybe maybe what's really happening is that it just doesn't take as many calories to bite into their lie as it does to look a little bit harder and find the truth that's really there. I'm not trying to sound like I'm being picky. I'm offering this as an exercise. What I'm saying is I'm offering this as an exercise that a psychology has been installed in all of us as part of our initiation into the truth movement. And this psychology is to feel that there are people out there that are trying to hurt us, deceive us, and destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that doesn't have an aperture that could serve you and get you a certain amount of ways. So I'm not saying that that's wrong. Each of our apertures are accurate because they allow us to get where we need to go. But do me a favor. The next time you catch yourself saying they, in the sense of what they are trying to do to us,
Mm-hmm.
see if you can reframe that and say, look how easily I fell for an offering that they was extending in exchange for my free consent, which I gladly lowered my pants for and said, yeah, I'll take that. And this is only an exercise in empowerment. It will feel hard because you'll have to like think and stalk your head. But if you can penalize yourself just a little bit for saying that, you may discover that you're going to start to look in different ways. And the next time, for example, I'm pretty mad at the Smithsonian Institute right now. Kind of pissed at the fuckers for hiding giants, right? I could say that they are here to deceive me and keep me down and keep me stupid. And there's an aperture for that. But I also could look at it as they need this psyop to continue because it's working. They need it. This is the only way it's making people yearn to really find the truth, is it has to be this big. If it's not this big, they may not think that there are other lies that are even bigger. The lies are so big for a reason. If all these were little white lies, as soon as we found one little white lie, we would be able to find all the other little white lies. What makes these bigger lies so hard is that they're so fucking big. I mean, they're so huge and fat and like right in front of us. Like they're always there all the time. And because of that, they're really kind of tricky to see. They're harder to discern. And so you need these stilts to reach the top of the refrigerator. You're going to have to first find a chair, and then that chair is not going to be quite tall enough. So you're going to have to find a bar stool, and that's almost going to be tall enough. So you end up creating these stair steps to get you up there. And so now you look at what NASA truly is. NASA is something that's a big enough beacon to continue to urge you, hey man, keep looking. You think space is fake? Holy cow. Wait till you look into viruses. Wait till you look, and that's what's happening. Thank goodness we were able to stair step our way up, Thank goodness we had something smaller like Building 7 to use to now look at the entire American Medical Association. If it wasn't for Building 7, I would argue that half of us wouldn't be able to see that because it would just be too big for us to picture, It's too much. We need that middle point. So all these things are doing us a favor. All these deceits are secretly stair steps, the Masonic Jacob's ladder, the staircase up to enlightenment. It's got to be freaking some of you guys out to hear me talking about Masons like that, but seriously.
Excellent.
Anthony, you have a question, but you're walking your dog. That's okay. If kind of unbelievable the lie. Yeah, I know. Exactly, Rachel. It's unbelievable that the lie would be that big, and that's what makes it so hard. That's what makes it such a beautiful challenge. It's going to take a lie that big because we're smarter than that. We're smarter than what it takes. It has to be expensive. Otherwise, some of us won't learn. Sensei has to be able to throw a rabbit punch, like a really good one, because if not, we wouldn't learn how to withstand a rabbit punch. Yeah, we wouldn't be here without Building 7. I firmly believe that. And that's why I think
do you feel comfortable talking about MEs or not? Because I feel that's part of the puzzle pieces too. What are your thoughts?
What's an ME?
Mandela effect. Because like a couple things, I think one of the things you said, the Smithsonian Institute, or is it the institution, and Grand Central Station is now Grand Central Terminal. And there's so many things in our consciousness that everybody remembers a certain way and it never was. And so to me, it's a real event like everything else, but it is another divide in this community. I'll have a video and somebody will just blast me at the end of it with their comments saying, I used to like you, but you talked about this and I'm out because, you're an idiot. But it's a real thing. And I'm just curious of what your thoughts on it, what you feel.
So I've only looked at it a little bit, and everything that I've looked at, which is little, very, very little, hasn't really like triggered me to think that it's real. But it's only been a little bit. And this actually kind of backs up Mandela effect. I am under the impression that reality is created in such a way that we need lies and deceit and unknowing to hold our fabric of reality together. And because of that, it would make sense that the Mandela effect would be a part of it. So I know it sounds weird, but I'm telling you I don't believe in it, but I'm also explaining here's how I think it would work if it was true. Because if each of us knew that in France right now, there is a yellow milk truck that's turning a corner, that yellow milk truck has to freaking be there. You can't get around it. It has to be there. If each of us believed that and saw that and knew that, and we passed that down to our grandchildren and our grandchildren, our grandchildren's grandchildren, and everyone, and we told all our neighbors and we told everyone, every single person in the world would have to have stored in their video game memory that you've been to level 7 and you saw a yellow truck on the streets of France. That's going to take up a certain amount of data in your game engine as you're running through that level. Do you follow me so far? It's known that, it's seen it. In other words, when you come back to that level, you already took the power up in that room, so that power up cannot be there anymore. That's maybe another example. So if you keep playing that game forever and ever, for 1,000 years, if you never turn the game off and you come back to that one level, that power up will have to be gone. That's fine, but now put yourself in a world multiplayer RPG, all right? Let's say you're in World of Warcraft and there are 7 trillion of us playing the game at the same time, and all of us are remembering that in France, the power up on level 3 behind this corner has been taken and it's not there anymore. That's fine. Each of us can remember that one thing. But what happens when each of us have to remember all 7 trillion of the power-ups that each of us have already either found or not found in our own system? For each of us to have to remember that is too much buffering for our cache. Our cache would never be able to show us triangles. It would never be able to show us real time because it would constantly be having to update all these 7 trillion power-ups that have been either taken or not taken, depending on each person's perspective in their game at the time they were in. So how do you fix this? You create what's called an on-screen game cache. An on-screen game cache, when you're running a game, literally runs a function on every triangle in the game that says, "Are you in my view? Is this triangle seen or not seen in the world?" And if it's seen, it has to remember it. But the second that triangle goes off frame, it's no longer seen, your system is allowed to forget. It's allowed to say, I don't care what's on that triangle. I don't even know about that triangle. It's not even important. Why does it forget? So you can process and run your game. So your game has enough limited space where it can run its memory. I know this is a huge example, I'm sorry, but what I'm trying to explain is that if you look at why we have lies, if you look at why we have deceit, if you look at why we can't know of anything, if you look at why there's glitches in the matrix, all of these could be explained simply by the fact that we only have so much rendering processing power and we can't afford to share it. Because the moment we know everyone else's screen, we become frozen because there's no more mystery. Everything's been rendered, everything's been decided. I already know that the power up in that place in France is gone. Everyone else knows that too. That's a dead part of the game, but it's taking up all this space and memory. So you need something that allows you to forget. I think this is why we die when we do. There's so many people in the world, that's a lot of power up. If we had less people, maybe there could be less, maybe people would live longer because their memory could sustain it longer. Totally guessing though.
Well, and I get all that. There's also, just to throw another fly in the ointment, there are personal ones. And those are the ones that to me are the most unexplainable. We went to dinner one time. It was my wife and I and 2 of our kids. And the 3 people at that dinner remember. And the 4th person, one of my sons, will swear to this day to his death he wasn't there. So he has no memory of being there. and yet the other 3 people at the table know it was him, and we sat there with him for that night. So that one's very odd, because it's someone in my real life. It's not a movie change or a computer screen. It's a real person, my son, and he has no recollection of being in that room, and the other 3 people do. And that was just a few years back. That one's a hard one to process. So
doesn't feel hard to me. I hear what you're saying, but to me it would seem to be easy to explain that he's only going to remember the triangles that are important, that are in his level at that time, and so he's going to block out the ones that aren't there. Like,
okay, so it's more of him just blocking out this memory, you think? I see.
Yeah, he's processing on something else, maybe.
I got something to say on all that.
I'm not trying to simplify it, Richard. I'm just telling you.
Oh, no. I have my own thoughts, and I talk to myself all the time. I want to hear what you have to say or everyone else. That's the whole point. So, yeah, thank you.
What you got, SP?
Well, I was just going to say that your analogy works good to explain how they would use something like Mandela effect to fuck with us. I assume they have reams of data and studies on how shit really works that we'll never get our eyes or hands on. And that includes understanding memory, the process of memory, how a memory is created and stored, etc. So it doesn't have to be quote unquote real magic. And it also doesn't 100% not, they can cast a spell on us with the media and with other things so that we have divergent areas, or we're not sure if we have divergent areas, but then they bring up a point, like whether or not it says GIF or Jiffy. That's a popular Mandela thing, right? Which one is it? I remember GIF, not Jiffy. But the fact that they have probably more thorough knowledge, and I'm talking about, these people that are running the dojo for us. And I even kind of like, I'm not 100% warmed up to the idea that they're benevolent or doing it as a way, like this is the only way to get these seeds to germinate. I've had this idea come back to me a few times, and I'd say that your work is the first time that I've really taken consideration of it. Like, okay, maybe there's people playing along at the top that are not just inherently stuck on keeping the power, but instead they're like, these people aren't going to wake up no matter what. We got to start knocking down buildings and say they didn't fall like they did, and all kinds of stuff, But yeah, I would say that Mandela effect, it might just be that they have a more comprehensive understanding of the memory process. And so it's easy for them to create the illusion of in real life changes, when really it's just because they have a better overarching view of how the brain works, or how the whole, I don't even want to call it brain, memory is stored everywhere in the body, how the whole memory system works.
How about if it's us leaving clues for ourselves? When you were talking about Satan earlier on, it reminded me of an idea that I had at one point, that looking at it from sort of Alan Watts kind of point of view, I was reading a lot of him at the time, and talking about, like, we're all parts of God. Like, we are God. The picture you drew of God within the system, would that be, did you call it deism? Was that theism? Aye, one or the other. And so and what you were saying about Satan's maybe the only one that gets out of here. Maybe there's a possibility that we are all in this together. We're all part of God. I think that's why I find it very difficult to personify God. I find it easier to think of it as being an energy, because you don't get sort of hung up on who this guy looks like and all that kind of thing, and what his motives might be and so on. If we're all part of God, maybe we've set it up that we can help whatever, I mean, I'm going to be to personify Satan right enough, so maybe we'll just call it an evil force, to teach that evil force about being good, or about, it's really hard to speak about it. So maybe we set the Mandela effect things, Building 7, we've put all that, you know, seeing they and us and all that sort of thing. Maybe we've put all these things there to wake ourselves up, so that, because we had to forget to come into this physical dimension, because that's the only way it would have worked. If we'd all remembered we were God, then it wouldn't have really worked. Maybe all these things are just sort of little clues that we left for ourselves, and it's all different clues that are going to speak to different people, different parts of us, because of the way we've lived in this realm. Sorry, that's probably the cat right amongst the pigeons, but just...
Yeah, I think if you go back to that hotel in Vegas, and you, before you open the door and go in, if you did not forget, if you were not to forget, you would just be looking at your trainer. You would just be the guy that cares about you, that just wants you to get in shape, and you know that, you know, he's not going to kick your ass for real. He's not going to really do something to hurt you. He can't. He's your buddy, and that's not going to work. It's when you go in and you've forgotten everything. Yeah. Real healing starts, and that's really what the deluge is all about, isn't it? It's we are each our own literal deluge that's happening.
And if the guy in the red suit is us as well, like it's all part of us. We're all part of it. Yeah, yeah, cool.
We decide who lives in the temple, right? God or Satan. And it's interesting, Jennifer, my wife just mentioned this yesterday. She's like trying to explain.
Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry.
Richard, I'm so sorry. I was trying to mute someone so you could talk, and it went to your thing. Please forgive me. Can you start over again? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Well, I was just saying that my wife was just talking about the same thing yesterday, Jennifer, is that she was trying to explain to me that we are God. God is the resonance of God is us. It's within us. And did you hear the part where I said, you know, the two temples, and that's where we decide whether it's God or Satan in there. And that thing that I was reading in this guy's book where he talked about the one tone and the second tone making the resonance. And so that is the spirit of God, however you want to describe him or name him or label him, which again, I hate labels, but we have these stupid words that we have to use, I guess. So whatever it is within us. It's everyone in this room and all the other rooms as to how it's going to resonate. And it's funny. It's interesting you're bringing that up because it's the same thing my wife was trying to knock into my head last night. Synchronicity.
Yeah, there's a fractals within fractals within fractals. It's the only way that I can see it making any sense is that everything's a fractal inside a fractal, and then it solves everything. Everything has a place, everything has a dimension, everything has its color, everything fits, but only if it's a fractal inside a fractal. Anthony, can you, I know you had a question. Can you unmute? And did you want to ask something? Anthony P?
Yes. Hello, James. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what's up with my phone. It likes to restart itself randomly sometimes. I think it's probably because I dropped it in water too many times.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. Okay, so my question basically is, first of all, I really love what you're doing for us. Like, I really, really appreciate it. And I start my day off every morning with you, and you really give me some insight on, you know, how to deal with this. And really, I was like looking at this like it was bad, but you really taught me like that this really is the best apocalypse ever. Like, this is really like a revealing, like an unveiling of like a lot of things that probably needed to like happen. You know what I mean? So it's good. And I show compassion to you for, you know, helping me think that way.
Great. Thanks.
So my question is, I've been with my girlfriend for like 2 years now, and 3 years, and she comes from like kind of like a family that was in like the Jehovah Witness and stuff, like, very like controlling and very like, this is the way that we're going to do things. And like her parents aren't in it, but like they kind of brought like that mentality of parenting like into how they parented her, like basically like not really like giving her decisions to make, just like this is how it's going to be and this is the way it needs to be and such. So she struggles with like a lot of like emotional things, and I'm really trying to help her like find her sense of self. Like I've already kind of helped her, you know, like recognize that God is there and such, because before she was just very, very angry and such. But my main question is, what can I do, you know, to help her like kind of like show more compassion for herself? Because she says, oh, I don't love myself, there's nothing good about myself, and I never want to love myself. But like in the way that she says it, I do feel like deep down she really does like subconsciously want to love herself. And I just want to know, you know, possibly like how I can help her find her sense of self and maybe show a little bit more compassion for herself.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Thanks.
I think the key is to make it expensive. If someone wants to belittle, berate, or destroy or demean themselves in your presence, you have to make that expensive for them. And your first technique might be to try and say, hey, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't talk about yourself that way, that's demeaning. And then they will come back and say, oh, I know, but I'm not worth it. I mean, they may not choose those words, but that's their approach, is they will come back and they will say, yes, but the meek inherit the earth, I should be learned to be more humble, and pride is before the fall, and it's okay, I'd rather just demean myself in public. So that technique's not going to work. You're going to appeal to their own compassion for themselves. Start there. It's probably not going to work. And then you get to hit them with a zinger, which is appeal to compassion for you in their presence. This works like this. Hey, I know that when you talk about yourself bad, you think it's okay because you want to think bad about yourself. But what you're really doing is telling me that I should talk bad about myself also. How would you like it if I was to say what you just said, but about myself? And just by asking that question, they're able to do the pranic math, and then they start to see things that, wow, this is not good. I thought I was just hurting myself, which was great because I didn't want to own my own power, but now you're showing me that actually I'm hurting you too. Fuck. And most people will act more in this world of inversion. Most people will act more if they find out that they're hurting someone else than they will if they hurt themselves. It would be better if they could see that they're hurting themselves and go from there, but that's almost too high for people to be able to reach. So you have to appeal to them more from the standpoint of, look how you're hurting me or them or that person.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can also see that in a lot of aspects, because she always does say that she loves me and that she's here for me, and that she's here for other people. She just can't find the compassion within herself. And I do try to like kind of touch on that with her. You know, I try to tell her, you know, it hurts me not seeing you be able to love yourself.
Yep.
So I can definitely like kind of resonate with that and try to work with her on that. That's a really good suggestion, James.
Great. Yeah, I think the key is to, especially with it's your parents, is to say, you know, that I follow your lead, right? You know that you're my parent, and that, you know, I've done this the whole life. You know that you're the duck mom, I'm the duck boy, and I'm gonna follow. And you know, this is how we learn. And even now, as we grow up, we remain connected, and I'm always taking cues from you. And here's your cues. Here's the cues that you're telling me that I should look at myself like. And I'm telling you, she'll fucking melt. She'll just be like, oh, I'm going to do, no, you're supposed to be proud of yourself. You're supposed to stand tall. You're supposed to have pride. You're supposed to, don't you know who you are? And then that's when you get to go, aha, why aren't you doing that to yourself? Don't you see, if you were to do that to yourself, it would help me, that it would reinforce me, because it would show me what that behavior looks like in someone else. And then you straighten your spine. And then you start to entrain with her. She starts to want to raise her spine in your presence too, because you've made it expensive. It's all about making it expensive. even though even with compassion, you can make something expensive. So
I got one thing to add to that, James.
Yes, please.
If you really want to make it expensive and it's not working, and of course use this carefully, but you can always, I use this against people in public if they're starting to act stupid and I don't want to deal with them. You can always escalate in the direction they're already going to an unforeseeable maximum. So if your girlfriend's being rude about herself, putting herself down, she's being disrespectful toward herself, and I would use this very gently with people that you love. It works great to get rid of people that you just prefer to not have to stand in line next to anymore. But if you just escalate, if she says, oh, I really look frumpy in this shirt, say, yeah, it looks like shit, you should burn it and just stop wearing shirts. Maybe you should fucking stay in the house from now on. That might be too far, but you understand what I mean. If you escalate a little bit, usually
guess it and think about how like how I don't know what the word is, but just like how silly that is.
Yep.
Yeah, because people will pull back. I mean, if you say, I think we should make black people stay in cages, they say, well, why not we just burn them all to death and burn and just store their bones in the cages? Usually people will back off from one position if you escalate towards the infinite end, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you love her, then it shouldn't hurt her or bother her too much. It might make it a little bit more expensive, but it's not going to cause like some kind of endless damage. It just is a way to shine.
She's got very thick skin.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I would even say that although escalate works, I'm just saying that you could even call it not escalating as much as just following it down the road. You know, where is this talk going to lead if we keep going? And that's, you know, that's basically what SP's doing. He's just saying, you know, yeah, if we stay on this road long enough, we'll be, burning everybody in cages and burning our clothes and whatever else. So yeah, it's
try to meet her more in her element than rather like mine. Take more of an approach that is going to like suit her and how she would be thinking about it rather than how I'm thinking about it.
Yep. Show that mirror. And more importantly, go into that contest, that prana economy, because that's what it is. Go into that with as much calories as you can and show her right up front, I will burn all these calories on this. This is not look, you cannot talk about yourself that way in front of me. It's hurting me. I'm really trying to do something successful with my life. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I need to be thinking as highly about myself as I can so that when shame does come, when I do something wrong, I can act on that accordingly instead of this pretend thing that I have to wear like a fashion statement every day so I can fit in society. Because that's how she got it. She was given that. That's how she was taught to fit in, you know?
Yeah.
You got to flog
I think
yourself.
it's kind of a defense mechanism for her because she's just always, you know, been on the defensive, like feeling like she had to defend herself and like what she stands for because she was always told that, you know, she wasn't doing things right and this is the only right way to do them type thing.
Yep.
Okay.
That's why I keep pushing, trying to get people back in their pelvis, trying to get people back in their spine. And that's why I think emotions are so crucial, guys. The way you feel emotionally is giving you a clue about a certain sector, a certain vector inside your energetic field. And most of us are taught just to carry those emotions around, that they should just stay with us all the time, that they should be normal, but it's not. If your pants feel too tight, there's something about your electrical field around your waist. It may not necessarily just be the pants. If something doesn't look right on you, if a shirt doesn't look right, there's something about the way you're looking at yourself that's wrong right now. It's all of these things are emotional clues, but we get lost in the minutia of the world. We think that our emotions are temporary, tertiary, and they don't really matter, that they're more like secondary possible vectors of something that's happening, when actually it's showing you your energetic field right now. It's showing you that. And when you go talk to your mom, you can feel her field. You can feel her field because you can notice how your emotions change when you're around her versus someone else versus something else. It's such a powerful way of measuring someone, is to use your emotions as a divining rod, basically.
So with that being said, do you think that eventually once she learns how to like kind of harness that and practice that, do you think that she could eventually use that on her mom to try to, you know, like show her some compassion for herself and try to get her to understand like what she did to her? Do you think that that's possible?
I think that it's not only possible, it's exactly how it works, but it's more of a subtle energy that you may never see absolute proof that it happened. The fact is that by you having a tall posture, when your mom sees you and you're not having a conversation, you're not even talking to her, for example, if she sees the way that you pick up a suitcase, or if she sees the way you sit down in a chair, if she sees pride in your posture, she will feel pride in her posture. You guys are connected through spooky action from a distance, quantum entanglement. It happened at birth. And when she sees that in you, she will do that too. And when she does that, her mother will do that. So it will resonate back and forward, right? It goes both ways.
Yeah. Okay, great. That really helps me. Thank you.
Please keep focused on yourself. I realize that society tells you not to do that, but focus on your own field, man. Focus
And everything else will follow.
Yeah, deprogram gets it. You got to focus on your own field right now, because if your field is strong, healthy, focused, vibrant, vitalitous, everyone around you goes, "Hey, I could use some of that. I could exhume that right now too. I think I'm worthy of that also." It just naturally happens. But we're taught that we have to help each other in order to help ourselves. And it's a really way of shorting your power and shorting your potential to help other people. It's never going to work out that way. If you're strong, if your ego's strong, you're going to be generous. If your ego's weak, you're not going to be generous. It works exactly the opposite that they tell it. That they tell you. Compassion is 1000% derived from excess energy that you have. Do you have energy to spare? If so, you will send your plasma out to that other person. You will link up with them telepathically, which is really emotively, and you will put yourself in their position and you will go, how's that person feeling? You know, I feel like, I wonder if that person's okay. I wonder if they're feeling okay, or if I'm reading this correctly. Then you start to ask why, because you had that extra plasma, you had that extra ego to do that. You only have that extra ego. You don't have that because other people say, oh, you were so selfless yesterday. No, you had that because you went to the gym. You had that because you groomed yourself. You had that because you worked on whatever. You improved yourself. You had that because you admitted you were wrong 7 years ago when it really hurt. All that is what charges you and keeps you charged, and it makes other people buzz from that. We are a reflection of how well we treat ourselves in front of others, not how well we treat other people in front of ourselves. It's completely backwards the way they explain it.
Kind of like they always tell us that ego is bad, but ego really is good because it kind of shows like where your morals lie, and it gives you like a limit, because if you don't have that limit, then, you know, you end up being out there, you know, being kind of a white apologist per se, and just protesting for like a cause that maybe you necessarily don't even agree with, but you're so invested into it, and you get invested into the narrative that you start to become part of that, and you let your personality be formed by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are scrounging for money, you're going to have a harder time getting anyone who's willing to give you a dime or to see that you need help. But if you're surrounded by people that have a plethora of money that's literally falling out of their pockets as they walk, they're more inclined to want to give you some of that. That's ego. Ego is fuel. Ego is that energy that you have. Why? It feeds someone. Someone who has ego and gives it away is fed from that action. But someone who has no ego is not fed from that action because they feel like they're being stolen. They're not able to give it. It's coercion. It's not compassion based. It's why taxes are so bad. Taxes are taking your money. We don't volunteer our taxes. They're taken from us. So it's a completely different energy exchange. Same thing for ego. That's why you see all this masochism around. If you have a society where everyone's taught to hate themselves, then you have a society that has a deficit of ego, which means everyone in the world is looking for ego. So how do you get that ego? Whoever flogs themselves the most creatively in public is the one who gets the ego right now. They get the virtue from everyone else. So you end up with this contest of self-mutilation. That's what you see all around. That's Watiko. That's what that word Watiko means. It's that psychopathy that comes from an emptiness in your chest. It's the belief in germ theory. It's the idea that there's a poison inside me and it can only come out by me sucking even more. Bad stuff.
Okay. Thank you, James.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, this whole cleanliness thing and people not thinking or thinking that they're dirty and all that. It's awful.
Yeah. And it's contagious. The whole thing becomes contagious because we decide that that's the new fashion. To treat ourselves that way is like a fashion, isn't it? It's like wearing a hat. It's like wearing a scarf. It's like, yeah, I hate myself. It's a fashion you wear. And when you have a very cheap ego, you see that fashion and you think it's impressive. You see the flourish of it and you're like, oh, okay, I want that. If I go in and tell myself I suck, people automatically go, oh, no, 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 no. That's vampiric. You just sucked everyone's compassion by telling everyone how much you sucked. It's a really dirty trick and we all play it. And most of us cannot afford to spend the chips to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I play this because it costs too much money, right? To be wrong costs you money, costs you ego money. It does. You're going to admit you're wrong. You're going to spend some money. The more you got in the bank, the more you're going to be able to admit you're wrong. You're going to be, I can afford this. No problem. Hey, I was a dick yesterday. Here's 15. I was really sorry about that. Blah, 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 blah. I'm really trying to fix that. I'm really thankful that you're taking my apology. Now you spent 15, but you powered up by 5. You gained 5 right then. But then more importantly, that 5 that you gained is now invested in your own character. And a week from now, you gain another one. All of a sudden you get a little blip on your phone. Whoop, you just made an interest of $1 from the 5 you spent last week. And you're like, how the fuck does that work? It's like, well, because you just passed John, the guy you apologized to. You didn't see him, but John saw you and he gave you prana. He's like, that dude is a good guy. He wronged me and he apologized. Here's some prana. And it's all automatic. It's all automatic. All this is quantum entangled. We couldn't stop this energy if we wanted to. You couldn't stop paying someone off for this prana if you wanted to. You can't, right? You watch Pele, one of the world's most famous soccer players when I was a kid. Pele sucked everyone's prana away. Why? Because the fucker did a backwards banana kick and won the game. That's right. Christine sees it. That's what fucking happened. Lane sees it. All you guys see it. And so right now, what did you guys just do? What did you just do? You just gave him prana. You shook your heads, and Pele right now in his grave just went, oh, and he's still getting paid for one fucking banana kick, right? One kick. It shows you what an alchemist is. It shows you how this works. This is how it freaking works. It's the prana economy underneath all of our stupid words that mean absolutely nothing. Like, oh, James, I'm not feeling so well today. What that really means is, James, can you give me a fucking jolt of electricity, my friend? I fucking need it. That's what that means underneath. But we have to learn to read our prana economy. That's where all the deep compassion is. Richard, you got something?
Exactly what you're talking about is I've found since, and I hate to keep using this guy's words, but there's a dude that keeps talking about apertures. And since I've opened my apertures more and more, I'm finding myself being able to talk about things that have humiliated me in my life openly, even on these shows. And not only do I feel a sense of like, of a lifting of something, like this burden is gone. Exactly what you're saying. I'm feeling this, something coming back from that experience. And it almost goes back to, if you put it to like the Bible teaching, whatever, we started out naked and didn't realize it. And then once we had the tree of knowledge and realized we were naked, then we were humiliated and clothed ourselves. So the story tells me. And it's kind of that. It's almost like a peeling off of all my old skins. And here I am naked. And I'm just, metaphorically, I'm not going to do it on camera, but here I am naked for the whole world to see. And that's kind of what I feel it is. It's as we, quote, kind of tear ourselves down, but in a good way, and say, hey, I'm going to tell you something that happened to me that was really stupid. Like the time literally when I called a girl to ask her out, and she answered the phone, and she was having a party that I wasn't invited to, and everyone laughed. And I could hear it on the phone, and that was it, okay? That was a really trauma moment in my life that I really haven't told anyone, except few people. But it's like exposing yourself, and not the real way, but exposing yourself as to who you really are, it's so freeing, it's so uplifting, because the more I talk to people and just talk about how I think on my channel, the more I'm feeling like I can do just about anything. It's that whole thing you were talking about, Benjamin, was I'm feeling straighter, I'm getting my shoulders back, I'm remembering to do that. And I think that's part of the process.
Yep. And whether or not you knew it or not, by you saying just what you did, you have collected a certain amount of prana from us that will come from now into the future. It'll be secreted in different ways. I don't know the formula. I don't know when it'll come, but that's how it will come. And just like if you were to tell a lie to all of us right now, like let's say you were to instead say, yeah, I called this girl up, man, and she came over and she like totally, you know, we did each other, and she told me I was the hottest guy in the world and I had the biggest member. And like if you were to say that instead, right, the exact same prana economy would happen. You would get some prana up front now, but as you move through your life, every time you saw the other 18 people in the room, you would be having to tax, because you would remember that time you lied to all of us. Again, people, Richard did not lie to us. I'm just using him as a horrible example here. But you would then have to suffer that same sort of transaction. And that's why I'm so convinced this place is nothing but awesome, because it works that way. Because there's this built-in system. It's built in. None of us can cheat that. We can't go, no, Pele, you can't have that. You can't fucking do it. It's even if you don't like me, let's say you're mad at me, but I say the word Pele, you're still like, fuck, got to give him Pele and make sure it doesn't hit James. Like here comes the prana, Pele, make sure James doesn't get it. And we have that transaction with everybody around us all the time, 24/7. There's not a damn thing we could do about it. And it happens after we're dead through reverence. There's a reason why people go visit graves and they look down. They're ingesting prana. They're creating an asymmetrical connection to the bones inside that earth. And they're saying, I remember you. And when saying that, I remember you, those bones are awakening and going, yeah, I've remembered. Someone remembers me. Someone remembers me. And all the work that person did to be remembered in his life has now just paid off, and he's dead. Right? Like that dude's long dead, and he's still getting prana. He's still getting prana because of the way he lived his life, because he made the right prana transactions while he was on this planet, and it made Richard go visit him. It made someone else go visit him. And it's like, I had to come back and see you. I wish Brent was still here. He was in here earlier, but he just got back from a trip all the way up north. He went to find his ancestors and clean their gravestone. And he doesn't know this, but that's now chalked into his prana. All of us have just talked about him. The next time one of you guys sees Brent, you are subconsciously going to remember, here's a guy that went all the way up north to clean off his tombstone. Brent didn't call me earlier.
Better than mine.
Brent didn't call me earlier and say, make sure that I'm going to get paid for this, right, James? I'm going to get some. He went alone. No one knew he was there, but he still gets all that prana. It's each of us are making these transactions. We have no idea how well or poorly they'll pay off either, you know? It's a beautiful thing. I will say that I'd like to address, Elizabeth had a question. She's not here today, but she had asked about, she was in love with this guy and they broke up, and she can't stop thinking about it. And that's a pranic leak. And in case she's watching this, I just want to address it real quick. Maybe you guys can tell me what you think about this. So first of all, there are a lot of empty people out there. And those empty people, some of us fall in love with them. I would say most of us do. And the reason why we fall in love with empty people is because of the way prana works. When you meet someone that's empty, you fill them with yourself. You take your prana and you put it into their vessel, into all the empty spots, and wherever is empty, you are now talking to yourself. This is why narcissists are so nice, because they're you. This is why when you meet empty people, they're so agreeable, because you have a lot in common with them. You really relate to them. You guys are going to see eye to eye on all the crucial issues. And when that person leaves and you still long for them, you are longing for yourself. You have left pieces of your plasma inside that person. You've literally turned part of yourself into a demon. Lane gets it. You've turned part of yourself into a divine spirit. A piece of you has splintered from your true core, and you are now living inside this person in their empty space, and they're gone. They stole you. They stole a piece of you and took it with them, whether they wanted to or not. And when you have this longing for someone, you have a longing for yourself. And you may not get that piece back. You may not get that piece back. And you have to take that missing piece as a huge gift of all, a very painful one. Because that piece is going to stay missing for a long time, if not forever. And you have to make that into something sacred and use it to never, ever, 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 ever do that again. Because if you could just get it back, if you could just wag your finger and say, I demand all my energy back. I mean, maybe, try it. Maybe it'll work. But if it won't, it's because it's that important. And you need something to remember for the rest of your life to never, ever, 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 ever do that again. And that's exactly why we like narcissists. That's exactly why we fall for love bombing. That's exactly why the psychopathic tricks always work, unless you're full of self. Unless you're selfish. So weird, right? Completely backwards. There's not even a word called selfful, but there should be. Because if you're selfful, you wouldn't do that. Because you would see someone that's empty and you wouldn't find them attractive. You would say, wow, this person, all they're doing is draining me. They're making me put myself inside them, and I already know I'm cool. I don't fucking need someone else to show me I'm cool. I'm badass, man. I don't freaking need them to do that. And that's why they're here. That's why psychopaths are here. They play such a crucial, crucial role in this world. Otherwise, you'll graduate from Earth Dojo and you'll go out and you'll get your big rig. All right. This is the big rig school. We are here to learn how to drive 18-wheelers outside of Earth Dojo. Right. And you get your license and you go out, and the first truck stop you go to, a chick with buck teeth who wants meth will do a trade with you in the bathroom, and she will steal your rig, and you haven't even made it to frickin' Albuquerque. You haven't even made it. As soon as you're out of Earth Dojo, you've already lost your entire cargo to a meth chick with buck teeth. And it's because you didn't learn how to be yourself. You didn't learn how to stay in your cockpit. You didn't learn how to say, something about this just doesn't feel right, Glenda. Just not going to do it, you know? And that's why you have psychopaths right now. That's why we have narcissists. That's why I don't have a family right now. Because I did that. And it fucking hurts. It hurts so bad I've written books about it. And I'm so bad that I talk to people that I don't know about the internet. And I tell them what happened to me. Because it hurts that much, and I don't want anyone else to do that. Such a shitty lesson to learn. And so many of us keep learning the same lesson. And I'm not saying if one of you would have told me that I would have stopped. I would not have stopped. but it was a big gift of ball. Cracked me the fuck open is what it did.
Me too, James.
Yep.
Same thing. Yeah. Now I look at the women I used to be attracted to, and I go, "Whoa, there it is. There's the old me, jumping right inside that empty shell. I used to be empty like her, so we could fake fill each other.
Yep.
And it's not there anymore. I can't tell you how grateful I am. And I had to go through hell too. People did tell me, they screamed at me and yelled at me and attacked me, and they told me 1,000 ways to Tuesday with tears, with cutting me off. It didn't work. I had to go through it. I went through hell. I think me and you went through a similar hell, but yeah.
Yeah, initiation is more like it. Yeah.
I'm in a good thing now, but it took many years to get here. I mean, I'm in my 50s, so yeah, I went through the same thing, and I was with someone that, to this day, is, you know, they satellite, they ceiling fanned around you, and to this day, there's still some prana that gets sucked out of me from that relationship, you know. But yeah, that's also the dojo that brought me to where I'm at now. So I get that, but that's a tough lesson, and I got beat up hard too, a lot.
Yeah, I think some of us choose that. There's people think I'm kidding all the time, but I think about what my avatar is, like who I really am. I swear it's that. There's a show called Vikings, and on the show called Vikings is this dude that can't see. His entire face is kind of melted over his eyes, and he's this seer guy. And whenever he walks in the village, he tells the truth, but everybody runs. They're just like, get the fuck away from me, dude. Get the fuck away from me. And I feel like I chose that role for me a long time ago. And the only way I could get it was by marrying the person I married. Like, it's like I had to go through that initiation ceremony to come out the other side as the way I am now. And so, this is what I mean in reference to Elizabeth's question. It's only because I'm now where I am and I look back. Here's how you stop energy. Here's how you stop leaking prana. I can look at that entire transaction now and say I made a profit. I can say that this is a good buy. With all the things involved in it, it was still a good buy. And it's only when you can think of that as a good buy that you are now making a profit off that tragedy now. Now that tragedy is finally paying me. I'm getting dividends now. And those dividends are really coming in well, because people tell me things like, James, you've really helped me a lot. That is such a huge profit, because if you knew what I had to go through in order to have someone type that, it's just like, yeah, it's just such an awesome alchemy. It's almost like I was like, oh yeah, watch this. And then I did my own version of a smaller Pele banana kick, and it worked. I didn't think it was going to work, and it took like 7 years to work, but now it's starting to work. And yeah, hold my beer. Exactly. That's exactly right. It's hold my beer. That's what all we're here to do. I hope more of us fuck up more.
And I'm just going to picture you kicking a Pele kick from now on. See?
I hope more of us fuck up more like that, because especially the long-term investments, you know, if you can find a long-term fuck up and find a way to make that profit, you will get a profit from that for a long time. This is all about your prana economy. It's all about the way you view it. And that's why I was getting on to you earlier, Richard, which may not have even been right. But when you were starting to say they, and that they want to hold us back, do this, that's my attempt to say, hey, wait a minute, there's a prana economy there that you could change. And I can look at Waynell Sexton and CNN now and laugh.
Yeah.
And that laughter means I'm collecting profit, doesn't it? Like if you were to look at how the prana economy works, if I'm laughing when I watch NASA, who's getting paid, NASA or me? I am.
I'll tell you one other, you're getting paid all the time, and I wish I could figure out a way to make her stop. Ever since yesterday's show, my wife walks around all day going, Liberté. What is the other one? Subversion. No, what is it?
Yeah. Liberté, equality.
Equality. She did it in stores. She just says it. She's been doing it ever since. Nice. Love your French accent. It's awesome.
Thank you much. But yeah, this is why we're here, man. And I hate to see the people that are walking around and they're never broken and they've never fallen and they've never taken a chance. Those people are those are the ones that I don't want to be around ever. Like ever. They don't have compassion. They don't know what it's like to take a risk. They don't know what it's like to take a risk and fail. It's those people are not for me. They make me feel really uptight. I feel an emotional field when I'm around them. One where it's like they've never stepped out of the plastic wrap, you know? It's like you've got a toy box, you've opened it up, and in the world are all of us, and we're dirty. We've got marker marks on us. We've been swindled through forests. We've got firecracker marks, whatever. Then there's this one toy that's still in plastic. It's like, I don't trust that guy. I don't want someone like that. They haven't had anything hard to learn, you know? Can't trust them.
Well, I would never leave you, but I do have an event that I got to get ready. So I'm
actually 4. Yep, I was planning on closing this up at 4 unless anyone else had anything. But I'm gonna, yeah, guys, I like doing this. If you want to keep doing it, you know, we'll try it again. And I really love that we had Benjamin come in. This badass, and you know, I'll see what else I can do about getting one else in later. So if anyone has anything to say or ask or whatever, speak now.
No, just thanks, James. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Loved it. Love you all.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks for the feather.
Glad it made it that way. That's great. That's great to hear. I just so you know, really quick, I put those feathers on the outside of the package because I wanted people to realize that we have trust in the world, that I can tape a feather onto a package and it will still arrive and get to you, even though everyone who touched that could see it and could have taken it at any point in time. So I thought it was a wonderful experiment. I'm glad so many people have gotten those.
Still waiting on mine.
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited though.
I can't wait either.
Yeah.
Good.
And thanks for that prana lesson at the end. That was I'm going to think about that one a lot today. So
of course. Yeah. Yeah, of course. We have a lot to learn. I still struggle with this. I got mad at a guy in chat today who said I talk too much, and it showed me I don't have a strong enough egoic field. James, you're a live streamer that has an audience now. People are you should be able to listen to someone say that. Like it's, you know, it's so, just so you know, I'm in the dojo too, you know, I'm just like,
I got in trouble on Gypsy Road's channel yesterday, and I didn't even know if it was an argument, but I was at odds with the guest, and I felt terrible about it later, even though, you know, it worked out. I wrote an apology on that show just because the same thing. I should have maybe looked at it differently at the moment, but I was in it and I missed it. So, yeah, we're all learning.
That's true. Well, hopefully we all are. Hopefully we are. Yet I confuse courage with narcissism. That is very easy to do, Christine. And guys, narcissism it's a big topic. We're welcome to talk more about that whenever. To me, what's so great about narcissism is that it's one of those really super obvious tools that has such a strong tinge to it that all of us can learn a lot from it by talking about it more, by discussing that more. So, yeah. It's all these are feedbacks. Narcissism is feedback. It's telling you how you're doing, how your field's doing.
Okay.
All right. All right, guys. I'm gonna hit end meeting. Thanks for being here. Happy Saturday to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Okay, bye. Take it easy, brother.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, James. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Bye, Lane. Good luck with the cat.